Thank you. Thank you, Joel, and thank you to the Greater Haverhill League for inviting me to be here this evening. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all of the candidates for being with us. We have a lot of ground to cover, so I'll start by explaining the format. We are waiting for one candidate, and she'll take her seat when she arrives. Okay. So the format was emailed to each of you ahead of time. And this segment features the candidates running for 4-year terms on the school committee. This segment will run probably a little past 7 p.m. since we're starting late. So I have a few instructions for the audience. If you could silence your cell phones and other devices. And actually, more importantly, can you hear me? Yes. You can hear me okay? Please let me know if you can't. As I think you all probably know, and I don't see any, but there's no campaign literature, signs, or buttons allowed in this room. We have questions for the school committee race. They are also taking questions for the city council race, and I'm not exactly sure whether those are being collected on index cards, but there were people at the table in the front, so if you have a question, I'm sure you can submit it. We ask that all questions apply to issues related to the office and that they be respectful and not personal. A league panel reviews the questions for legibility and clarity, and I will ask as many as time allows. You may not hear your exact question because I may combine a couple of them into one to cover a variety of topics. And we ask that there be no clapping, cheering, or calling out. You hold your applause till the very end when they finish their closing statements. And I want to say that tonight's event is being broadcast on WHAV 97.9. Thank you very much to Haverhill TV for that. So for the candidates, you're seated in alphabetical order. The first question will be your opening statement. You'll have 1 minute for a closing statement. And the question you were emailed in advance is the first one I will ask this evening. You'll answer in alphabetical order. You'll have up to 1 minute. The rest of the questions have come from a variety of sources, including audience members, Facebook, Twitter, email, high school students, and through the Greater Haverhill League's website. You'll have 1 minute to answer each of those questions, and I'll rotate the order in which I call on you, and that gives you an opportunity to be first, last, in the middle, and not in the same order for the whole time. If a question is directed to a particular candidate, actually none of these are, so that's fine. And I may ask a follow-up question. So you'll each have 1 minute for a closing statement, and those will be delivered in reverse alphabetical order. About our timekeeping, our timekeeper is Kay Herlihy. She's sitting in the first row. When there's half a minute left, she'll hold up a 30 seconds card. At 15 seconds, she'll hold up a 15 seconds card. And then when your time is up, she'll hold up the stop card. And I'll just ask you to finish your sentence. I don't like to cut people off, but I just will ask you to wrap up. And if you don't, then I'll say thank you and move on. Personal references about other candidates are out of order. And the cameras in the room in the back there. This forum is being broadcast live, as I said, on WHAV, and it'll be rebroadcast several times on local Haverhill channels. So we'll begin by introducing the 5 candidates who are running for 3 4-year seats on the school committee. They are, and I will introduce Ms. Ryan Chardiello when she gets here, Katrina E.J. Hobbs-Everett, incumbent Paul A. Magliacchetti, Richard J. Rosa, and Richard E. Smith. So now we'll move on to the Q&A. The first question was emailed to you in advance. You'll have 1 minute. And this goes to you first, Ms. Hobbs-Everett. Please tell us why you are seeking the position and about your prior experience working with civic, community, and/or government organizations. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here tonight. I'm not sure if you can hear me. And so my background is human services. I've served 20 years in the field of human services, and that varies from public, private sector, government, federal agencies, social work, addictions, mental health, youth work. I have a bachelor's in human services with a minor in youth work from UMass Boston. I also have a drug and alcohol abuse counseling certificate from Northern Essex Community College. And I am a mom of 7. I have 6 that I've birthed and a beautiful bonus son. And so I'm running for the reason that I feel like we as a community need to get back to community and the basics of why education started, which is families and children. And so I feel like that's something that I'm running for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Magliocchetti, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. Paul Magliocchetti, running for my 3rd term as school committee, and I respectfully ask for everyone's vote on November 7th. I proudly served for the past 8 years on the school committee. I'm a Hilly. All 3 of my children have attended the Haverhill Public Schools. I believe that the greatness of a community is firmly, the foundation is its educational system, and I believe I've helped contribute to that. I'm a managing partner at Haverhill's largest law firm and one of the most prestigious law firms in the Valley. For the past 8 years, I've served on the board of directors for the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce and Bethany Communities, and I'm currently the chairman of both boards. I've been on the school committee for the past 8 years. During that time, I personally have helped raise over $2 million for the Haverhill Public Schools through lobbying with Brian Dempsey and getting state funding for all-day K, for voting to have artificial turf at the stadium, which has generated over $140,000 a year in revenues, to personally donating a portion of my salary every year to the Haverhill Public Schools. I proudly serve on the school committee, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 7th so I can continue this community service. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There's many positive things happening in the Haverhill Public Schools. Our students, our teachers, our staff, our administrators, they work hard and they do many great things. Despite their success, problems persist. I'm running for school committee because I want to help. I care about our schools, I care about our students, and I care about our city's future. And I want to work to improve the public schools. Running for school committee is another way of giving back to Haverhill. Haverhill's been good to me, it's been good to my family, it's been good to my wife and children, and I want to give back. In the past, I've worked in the community as a YMCA coach, a CCD teacher at Sacred Hearts Parish. I've worked here at the high school early in my legal career as a coach for the moot court team that they had here. Mr. Pine was the teacher back then when they had that class. I want to use my experience as a father, an attorney, and as a business owner to to help improve the Haverhill Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So now we'll move on to question 2.
Richard Smith.
Oh, my goodness. I apologize, Mr. Smith. Keep me on my toes. Very
I got your
good.
back.
You have 1 minute, sir. My apologies.
Thank you. I'm running for school committee because, is the mic on?
Yep.
I'm running for school committee because I have the personal and professional experience. Some of you have heard me say that my kids have gone through the whole system here in Haverhill from preschool to 12th. I'm also a working public school teacher and have 30 years total experience as an educator. In terms of my engagement in the community, I've been very active in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Haverhill for 17 years. And as some examples of my work doing social justice and environmental work, one in 2009, I coordinated with the mayor, the superintendent of Haverhill Schools, and the superintendent of the Whittier Votech to get filters on the diesel buses that were free being offered by the state to avoid having fumes come onto the buses for the kids. I also introduced a resolution to the City Council last summer supporting gas leaks legislation at the state level.
Thank you very much. And I just proved that multitasking really is tough. So I apologize again for that. So now we'll move on to question 2. Ms. Hobbs-Everett, you'll have the first. So Haverhill is beginning its search for a new school superintendent. What qualities would you look for in a school superintendent, and why are these qualities important?
Thank you. So for me, I feel like it's very important that we find someone who's willing to stick around long-term. This superintendent that we've just had has been with Haverhill for, I believe it's 10 years, and so that is a long time. We're coming out of the season where people have lasted for like decades in the school system, so we need to try to figure out why that's happening. But I feel like some of the qualities that are needed for our next superintendent would be somebody who is equipped and in the know for changing schools, and so our diverse demographic that we have, and knowledgeable about the different ways to be able to educate them and to also increase our school, to not to increase it, I can't think of the word there, to shrink the achievement gap. And so creative ways of finding out how to educate our students and to be able to engage families in the community as a whole. Those are things that I think our superintendent needs to know how to do.
Thank you. Mr. Magliocchetti.
We need a very strong leader. Haverhill is a very complex district in terms of its diverse population, in terms of its size, in terms of the issues we currently have with our rankings compared to other communities in the state. We also have a space issue. So whoever we get has to be a very strong leader. He has to be able to get the teachers, the administrators, to work collectively. He's got to be a great coach. He's got to be someone that exudes confidence and that has others believe in him. We need someone that will inspire not only the staff, but will inspire the students and the families in the community to work together, because that's what we need to achieve educational greatness. We have to get the families engaged, and we got to get the families, the students, the teachers, and the administrators all on the same page. We need someone that has that kind of energy and that kind of global view on education in order to move forward and in order to create a great educational system here in the city of Haverhill.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa.
I think the new superintendent needs to have a number of skills. One of them is he needs to be able to manage people. Like Mr. Magliocchetti said, we have a large and diverse student population here in Haverhill, and being able to manage a district like this is very important. The superintendent also has to have a strong academic background. That's also important. We need to improve where we stand with early literacy and other areas as well. But what I think is the most important job of the superintendent is to hire and recruit principals. Principals are the leaders of our schools, and schools will do well when they have a good principal. And I think not only hiring and managing and mentoring these principals, but also creating a pipeline of future assistant principals and principals is important, so that we continually have strong leaders in every one of our schools.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
I would like to see a superintendent who has experience working in city schools. I would like to see one who has been a superintendent somewhere else and not as someone coming out of a program or rising from a principalship. I think they need to have a track record of having improved student achievement, and we need to see that. And I plan, if I am part of the committee and asking questions, I plan to ask how they will approach the budgeting process. Because as it is now, the mayor gives the superintendent a number, whereas in other districts, like mine in Stoneham, the superintendent develops a budget book that's 40-plus pages long and gives it to the mayor, and then they negotiate what the budget is like. So I think that's something I would like to hear, how the superintendent incoming would be dealing with the way things have been done here.
Thank you. So we will move on to question 3. And Ms. Ryan Chardiello is joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
So this question goes to Mr. Magliocchetti first. What are the essential elements of a strong professional development program for educators? What kind of professional development program do our public school teachers need With substantial data to support the increase in autism, there is a concern that professional development alone does not provide the skills today's teachers need to deliver educational instruction to students with autism. So what ideas do you have to better prepare?
In 1 minute?
I know. Really. I hear you.
Professional development is something that we're really trying to invest more in the city of Haverhill. It's really been lax over the past few years, and this year we brought particular attention to it with the budget. This year there was only $30,000 of a $90 million budget that was allocated for professional development. Now, I know that that number is a little bit misleading because we do get most of our professional development funds from grants. When you do that, the professional development is very targeted towards certain areas. With regard to the autism, we need to, again, engage the parents of the students that have the autism. We need to reach out to the community. We need to invest in professional development that helps us service the children with the needs they need to meet their IEPs. We need to make sure that the teachers are able to deliver to the students and that the parents are satisfied with the education they have. With autism and special education in particular, it's a real family involvement issue.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa.
So when I've spoken to a number of teachers about professional development, and there's a few things that keep coming up. One, they say that good professional development is very helpful to them, and they want to do more. On the other hand, they say sometimes professional development isn't related to what they're doing, and it's not very useful. They tell me that there are a couple of things that work really well. Professional development that is in the classroom as opposed to at a seminar. They feel that the classroom's professional development is more real life, more like it is when they're at work every day. And they also tell me that younger teachers really appreciate mentors. And that sort of professional development is also extremely useful. As it relates to autism, I think it's very simple. The special ed director ought to be coordinating the professional development. I think that is happening now, finally. I don't know that it was happening in the past, but that's who should be deciding what professional development special education teachers should be getting.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
The Department of Education report that was released back in May 2016 has a number of recommendations for very specific professional development programs for the teachers and also for administrators. There's a number of them, too many to go through here. One thing it mentions is that professional development is not tied to a strategic plan, and that's absolutely critical. We have to have a strategic plan first of all in order to tie professional development to that. So we'll be needing to put that into place as soon as we get started. In terms of autism, I've had autistic students in my class as a teacher in Stoneham, and they typically have an aide with them depending on the severity of their autism. And there's an attempt to integrate the student into the classroom in an inclusive way. But you know, there's no shortage of need for knowledge of just what autism is, and that's what we need more development for teachers.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan Chardiello.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here tonight and to get started with the question. As a former Haverhill Public School teacher and a mother of 3 children that attend Haverhill Public Schools, the importance of professional development for teachers is critical. And like it was stated earlier, our budget this year, we didn't allocate nearly enough funds as that should have been allocated. Back when I was teaching in Haverhill, I remember attending seminars and workshops on a regular basis. Again, the budget money and the spending may have been more, and that obviously has decreased through the years. So I intend, if elected, to work and try to secure more funding to better give our teachers the resources needed. And in regards to children with autism, they need the resources. All children in special education and autism and teachers that are working, the special ed teacher aides, they also need the proper training. They're not always included into these workshops, and they're the ones that are working one-on-one with these children. So I would say that we need to come up with not one size fits all, but to direct resources and go by what the teachers need and see what the teachers' needs are and start from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs Everett.
Thank you. So autism is a broad spectrum, much like mental health services or any other thing that we're dealing with, like say addictions. There's a broad spectrum, and so professional development cannot be just something that you go to one day or even twice a month. This term has been coming up in some of the school committee meetings about coached professional development. That is the type of professional development that I feel that we need. And so you're not just getting something one time, but you have mentors that come alongside you, and they actually walk you through how to do those things. The other part I would like to say about professional development is we are too siloed, and so we have like all these different segments. And so let's say 1 year cultural competency might be like a trend, and so all the teachers start learning that, and it's something new, and it's kind of challenging, but you're trying to adopt it. Trauma is another one, but there's no way that that's tied currently to like a larger, more comprehensive plan. And I feel like that's very important that in considering professional development, that we also consider how that ties into the whole and start looking at the whole picture instead of just segmented pieces.
Thank you. Okay, sorry, I just have everything organized and, okay. So, this next question will go to Mr. Rosa first. So, would you have supported the plans to install solar panels on the roofs of Haverhill High and the Tilton schools? Please answer yes or no and explain why. If yes, how would you propose to use the estimated $10 million that would have been saved in energy and roof replacement costs over the next 20 years?
So to answer your question, yes, I would have supported the solar panels on the roof of the Haverhill High School and the Tilton School. The reason why I would have supported it is because whether you believe that the building could support the panels or not, we're a city of 60,000 plus people. We could figure out how to put solar panels on a roof and not have it collapse. We drive around anywhere in this city and in other cities, and there are panels on the roof. They don't collapse. So if there was an issue and people were unsure whether it was safe, then the school committee should have scheduled another meeting, maybe in a few days, or as soon as the law provided, and another engineer should have went out, looked at the roof, and confirmed whether or not we could have done it. But there's no question that a city of this size could figure out a way to put solar panels on a roof. We squandered that opportunity. It's $10 million over 20 years. How it would be spent, there's multiple ways it could be spent. On building special education programs, on the arts, the school band.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
I would have supported the solar panels. In fact, that's what got me focused on the school committee. I mentioned that most of my work has been environmental work at the UU Church, and I started to pay attention to what was happening in the school committee. And when they voted down the solar panels, I realized there was some serious dysfunction on this school committee, and that's when I started to think maybe I can bring my skill and background to make a difference. Global warming, what can I say? It just, we got to go as fast as possible with these kind of measures, and the fact that we're losing a couple years just really significantly hurts me in a deep way. The ways to spend the money, we've talked about it. Professional development, I pointed out that we're down to $4 per pupil spending on professional development, which will put us at the very bottom of the state, and that's got to change. That would be my first place to spend the money.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan Chardiello.
The vote on the Haverhill High School solar panel project and the Tilton School project, I just want to start out by commending all the students that came forth to speak before us. The fact that they had that much interest and personal passion to better their school meant a lot, and it really, they were heartfelt in what they had said. But to tell me $10 million that we were going to save, I'm sorry, many of you may not or may not agree with me, but I don't see putting a price tag on our children. I requested a third-party independent structural engineering company to come out and check the Tilton School. It never happened. You were all told it did happen. I have documentation. I spoke to that third party that was not an independent third party. They were subcontracting from the company that was going to do the bidding. So
Thank
I don't
you.
know how anyone could vote yes on something knowing that the buildings were never checked to see if they could hold the weight of the panel.
Thank
And
you,
again,
Ms. Jardel. I'm gonna have to stop you right there.
I support solar 100%.
I have to stop you.
100%.
Thank you.
If it is safe.
Ms.
Thank you.
Hobbs Everett.
Thank you. So from what I was able to follow, I again wasn't sitting on the school committee, but from what I was able to follow, it's certainly a vote that I would have supported. As far as ways to spend that $10 million, that's not something that I could come up with alone, but if I had my wish list, I am a strong advocate for community schools, like I said, kind of going back to the basics of how education started, especially here in Massachusetts as like the neighborhood group at the family level. So going back to community schools where we have comprehensive services for all students, where we cover social and emotional learning, where we approach discipline through a restorative justice approach. So we are doing conflict resolution and mediation and not just suspending kids and sending them into the school to prison pipeline. That is ways that I would look at spending that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Magliochetti.
I proudly voted yes for the solar project, and I believe that everyone that voted against it, whether they're running for school committee or state office, should be held accountable for their no vote. It's absolutely inexcusable to throw away $10 million in the city of Haverhill with the budget issues that we face, in particular the budget issues created by the Hale debt. Educational opportunities that were lost. We were going to enhance the STEM program here at Haverhill High School with the solar panels. The students here were going to be involved with not only the learning about solar, but about all kinds of alternative energy. $200,000 a year was lost. We could have invested in preschool and early education, and we could have invested in dropout prevention programs. A lot was lost by voting down that solar project. And like I said before, the no votes should be held accountable on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move on to question 5. Mr. Smith, you'll answer this one first. Given that there is a strong correlation between family income and student test scores on the experimental tests the state requires in reading and math, what do you think is an important way we can assist our students in Haverhill? What work needs to be done in that regard? The challenges, such as the poverty rate. Can you list what you would do?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. So given that there is a strong correlation between family income and student test scores on the experimental tests the state requires in reading and math, what do you think is an important way we can assist our students in Haverhill? What work needs to be done in that regard and, to address the challenges such as the poverty rate and the challenges that that brings?
Well, I was mentoring last spring here in the high school for an app inventor, an app challenge, app invention challenge. And I saw one of the teachers reading a book called Teaching with Poverty in Mind. And it was a book that I believe all the high school teachers were asked to read. And I'm not sure where that went or if they followed through. There's some concern with follow through with some of these programs. But there's a lot to know about the effect of poverty on brain development. And this is not to say that we cannot intervene and make a difference. If we develop our professionals, if we develop our teachers to do the work of addressing these deficiencies, then we can make a difference.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan Chardiello.
Thank you. As a former Haverhill Public School, I worked for the Family Literacy Program, and I was a home visit specialist. So I worked in the homes with at-risk students and helped not only the students themselves, but the parents that were working towards their GED. And then I came across, it brought a lot of attention to me being involved in this program and my background as a teacher. And then now being a parent of 3 boys in the school system, I can start to see that with the state testing, there's it's not always going to hold what a student has to offer. Some children test better than others. Some children excel in different areas. So going back to what, being in the homes with the families, there was very, at poverty levels, most of them, and they were very bright students, and they did not test well. So it was unfair that the fact that they were not scoring high enough, but when you would talk to them one-on-one and saw the work that they were doing, it was disappointing. So there needs to be a better way to approach that. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs Everett.
Thank you. I feel like what we have here is not an issue of testing, but it's an issue of equity. I feel as a low-income, as a low-income mom, as a low-income family, oftentimes we, again, lump generalizations into things that are not necessarily the scope of the whole thing. I think what we need to be looking at are policies that disparately have bias and affect some people more than others. I think we need to look at test systems that are disparate and also disproportionately affect the way that people test and don't. I think we need to look at the fact that it's no secret that third grade reading levels for Black males are how they determine how to build prisons. And so this is more than just a test issue. This is a societal issue of equity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Magliocchetti.
Thank you. We all know that there's a correlation between income levels and test scores. I'm not a big fan of the MCAS or the testing. I think that it has a lot of issues. But look, at the end of the day, like I keep saying, a lot of it has to do with family engagement. We have these students in our schools. The teachers do great work. We have phenomenal teachers here in the city of Haverhill. But we have to work on family engagement. Again, we have to invest in the professional development. We have to let the teachers know what are the best practices, what can they do to encourage family engagement. We're already doing a lot at identifying the students. You go in any school in the city, you'll see data walls in all the schools. They have every student laid out where their weaknesses are and where their strengths are. Again, we need professional development to help teachers deal with those particular issues. And we have to invest more in early childhood education. We have to go beyond kindergarten into preschool and pre-K to 2. We have to get all the kids in the city of Haverhill reading up to speed.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa.
First and foremost, we have to identify those kids that are at risk, and then we've got to come up with a plan to support them. One thing that's very important is early literacy. People think of early literacy as simply reading, but it's also writing. And it's been shown in studies that students that can write also do better in things like math and science as well. So we need to really focus in on early literacy early on to help them as they go farther in their academic career. Because as we all know, you learn to read, but then you have to read to learn. And so that's why early literacy is so important. And we need to follow up. It's, there's no shortage of programs or plans that we know that work. We know what the best practices are. We just need to follow through, and we need to execute on those plans.
Thank you. So actually, this next question totally follows up beautifully to the one I just asked you. And this will go to Ms. Ryan Chardiello first. Research has shown when teachers and parents develop a home partnership, students are more successful in their academic achievement. Do you agree? And if so, what are some specific things you would do to help develop a homeschool partnership? You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I agree that the homeschool partnership is critical. Going back to the early literacy and another program, when I was teaching with the family literacy program, I worked with early literacy students and preschool age and younger. So getting that parent-school partnership is critical. If you don't have the parent involvement, then the child that is at risk is most likely not going to graduate or succeed. In not all cases, but in the majority of them. So bringing a solution for that would to be, we saw a change over at the Tilton School, for an example. The family engagement, the parental involvement has, under new leadership, has skyrocketed. And we now have parents, attending the PTO events. They're getting involved. They're showing up for conferences, and it's making a huge difference. So scores go up when the parent is involved, and this starts in the early ages and in the beginning years. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs Everett.
Yes, I'm a strong advocate for family engagement. As far as the ways that we can incorporate that, I am a champion for Dr. Karen Mapp's dual capacity framework. That is something that I learned about when I attended a Harvard session this summer with Jared Fulgoni and Dr. Darshan Thacker. And so the dual capacity framework provides opportunities for families to engage with school districts. Currently, what is happening nationwide is the fact that there are not opportunities for parents to actually engage with districts in ways that make sense for them, not ways that make sense for the district, and kind of these generalized views of attending a PTO or being involved in a sports club, but ways that the family naturally, organically supports their children, tapping into that and building a system of shared accountability and shared work as well. So you celebrate the successes and you work on the challenges, because this is something that is beneficial for all students, not just high-need students or challenge students, but district-wide.
Thank you. Mr. Magliocchetti.
And now for something completely different. I have to recognize Ms. Hobbs Everett, because she's the one that got the grant for our administrators to go to Harvard and learn about this program. So everyone should know that. And she shared it with us. And we all learned something from it. And what it is what I've been saying all night. We have to reach out to the homes. We have to work on family engagement. And the point that we got from the Harvard program that they attended was we have to find out what the positive aspects are of the family at home and work off of that and feed off of that. And again, that's where the professional development in the classroom goes. That's where the relationships between the teacher and the students and the connection with the family beyond the classroom, that all has to happen. It all has to occur. And once we get that mastered, I think a lot of great things are going to really start to happen, and we're going to see an explosion in positive developments in the Haverhill Public Schools.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa.
This is absolutely something that we need to get a handle on. Parent engagement is so important. I talked to a teacher recently, a second grade teacher, who told me she had about 25 students in her class and 9 parents showed up for parent-teacher conferences. With that sort of engagement, that we're going to continue to see these problems. We need to increase parent engagement. A topic that's come up at school committee meetings recently is to start a parent resource center. It seems like a great idea to involve parents very early on, even before they start school, having a one-stop shop, so to speak. Apparently, other large districts like ours have a parent resource center that is a centralized location where parents could find out everything about our schools, but also find out things about how to help their, child who's, let's say, under 3 years old, start to engage with books and literacy.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
This idea of a parent resource center, it's the first I heard about it, but it goes along with an idea that I had just in terms of not only educating students as being the job of the public schools, but educating parents about how they can become partners in educating their students. And part of this would be outreach to families that have newborns or very young children, because we know that houses with no reading material, and they are out there, kids who are in that environment, they're not exposed to reading, they're not exposed to role models who are reading. If they don't see stuff to read, it doesn't cross their mind. So this, I think, is just to have some books, just to have them there. Not even necessarily to be reading them, just knowing that much. I believe the parents have the best interests of their kids in mind, and they will do these kinds of things if we let them know what they need to do.
Thank you. So this next question will go to Ms. Hobbs Everett first. Many young adults don't know how not participate. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. I should have rewritten it. I'll just read the question as it was submitted. Our youth have the lowest turnout and participation rates. Many young adults don't know how this affects them or how they can help. Do you think civics should be a mandatory class in high school? How would we also help to support a greater turnout rate for young adults? And right along with that, what, in your opinion, can the school committee do to advance civic education in Haverhill schools?
I do think civic education is a good thing, and I do think that's something that should be offered in our schools, particularly at the younger grades as well, not just kind of starting at the high school level. But in general, when we're talking about participation and turnout, this kind of ties in with, family engagement and outreach and all those different things. I think that we, again, need to start changing the way that we think and the way that we view about traditional outreach and the things that we've looked at as far as participation. And so one of the things is that we don't include families, we don't include youth in that process. We create programs and policies and events, and we expect them to just kind of come. We plan centers and say once we build it, they will come. That is not the truth. If you do not include people, and if you do not get buy-in at the very ground level, the programs, the policies, the procedures, the events, the centers, it does not matter because they have not been included in that process. There's nothing for them to come in and own and shape and make it their own, so you won't see them coming and participating.
Thank you. Mr. Magliocchetti.
One of my earliest recollections of being involved in politics, I was as a fifth grader, I think it was fifth grade, at Constantino Middle School. That was the year that Jimmy Carter was elected president. Maybe some younger ones here don't even know who Jimmy Carter was, but that's okay. Anyways, but at the time, the middle schools actually ran mock elections. They had the students set up elections. They had us watch the debates. They had us do current events in the classrooms, in the middle schools. And we got involved, and we got engaged. And to this day, I remember it. That's kind of what was said earlier. We have to hit the kids at the early ages. We can't focus just at the high school. We have to introduce it at the elementary, the middle schools, and the high school, all the way through. Let's set these kinds of programs up. Let's also get teachers talking about current events daily in their classes. Just work it in a few minutes. Little things like that will go a long way in getting students involved as they get older.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa.
So there's actually a civic bill pending at the State House. One of our state reps, Linda Dean Campbell, is a sponsor of that bill. I support the bill, but like the League of Women Voters, I don't support the part where the legislation dictates registering high school students to vote. I don't think that that's something that they need to be involved in. You asked how the school committee could help. Well, the school committee could help by inviting students to school committee meetings, meeting with students on a regular basis and talking to them about what we do and how we do it and how we make decisions and what the budget process is like. There's many, many ways to engage students in civics. We have 6 school committee people, we have a mayor, we have 9 city councilors. There's multiple opportunities for students to get involved and our elected officials to help.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
I would totally support a mandatory civics class. I think that's the key purpose of education, is to educate our citizens to be engaged and active as citizens, and it's absolutely essential. When we had the solar panel vote, there were a handful of Haverhill High School students who put together a petition. They came to speak at the meeting, and I supported their speaking. And unfortunately, when they called one of the school committee members, it was suggested that one of their teachers put them up to it. When my son called to speak on behalf of the solar panels, that he was told that one of the teachers put him up to it. This is not what a school committee should be doing. A school committee should be encouraging this kind of engagement and behavior and inviting the students to do this kind of citizen work. That upset me to no end.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan Chardiello.
Thank you. Yes, I support having civics taught in the classrooms and even at an early age. Something many of you may or may not know about me, but when I attended the John Greenleaf Whittier Middle School, I was elected as the state rep for our class. So we were engaged in, this was part of the curriculum in the middle school days when I attended. Should it go back further? Absolutely. Students should be involved in this and and see it. My three sons, my oldest son is in the 5th grade, my youngest is a 1st grader. They know all about elections. They know municipal, they know state, they know the federal. It's something that I grew up in a home learning about it, and I'm teaching my children, and I believe all children should be exposed to it. Some parents may not have the knowledge or the interest in it, so they're not going to be learning it at home. So absolutely, I think that it should be involved in the schools, as well as if it is taught in the schools, it should be a way to make it so teachers aren't dictating to a certain or pressuring their students to go for or against particular candidates. And unfortunately, that did happen this year.
Thank
An
you.
email was sent around about myself.
Thank you.
And it was
No,
unfortunate.
I will have to stop you there.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay, so we are close to time, but I'm going to continue to ask a couple of more questions just because we got started late. So this question goes to you first, Mr. Magliocchetti. You'll like this one, I think. I think all of you will, right? Everyone wants more money for education. But outside of asking the city to pay more, how would you personally bring more money into the Haverhill Public Schools?
Well, thank you very much. Like I said earlier, when we needed an all-day kindergarten for everyone in the city, I personally lobbied Brian Dempsey for months to get, and he and Mr. Scully worked together. And through that lobbying effort and working together with Mr. Scully and Brian Dempsey, we were able to get a kindergarten grant that was about $230,000 a year that lasted for about 5 years. That's over $1 million right there. When I joined the Stadium Commission and we had to take a vote on whether to do the stands or the turf, I was one of the deciding votes on putting in the turf. And ever since then, we've been generating over $100,000 a year for the past 6 years. When the girls' volleyball team wanted to go to Disney World to enter a tournament, I reached out to my colleagues in the business community, and we made sure that not one of those girls had to pay for the trip. I donate a portion of my salary every year to the Haverhill Public Schools. There are more things we can do. I can continue to engage the business community, and I continue to engage our legislative delegation in Beacon Hill to get as much money as possible for the Haverhill Public Schools.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa.
Well, one of the things that I hope will happen is there's a bill pending in the state legislature that has to do with the foundation budget. The foundation budget is something, it's a formula that the state uses in how they allocate money for local school districts. One of the things that needs to change is when they created the budget, the foundation budget formula, it didn't take into account enough for things like health services and special education in particular. And so if that budget if the bill that is pending passes and we have reform in that area, hopefully our school system will get more money in those areas, especially special education, where we have a growing population of students with special needs. Also, it's about engaging the community. I think there's a lot of people in our community that want to help, and I think we have to make sure we use those opportunities to ask for help.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
I mentioned before wanting a superintendent who's going to fight for a budgeting process that's more in line with other districts, like the one I work in Stoneham, where the superintendent presents a budget book proposal to the mayor rather than accepting a number from the mayor and then trying to squeeze all the needs into that confining number. I would also support the citizen movement that's been undergoing here in Haverhill since the Haverhill for Hunking movement. And what we saw there was citizens coming together and reaching out and knocking on doors and getting people to accept a higher, a 2.5% boost in the taxes to pay for that. So I think we need to tap this citizen movement to pressure the mayor to give more funds to the schools. Dr. Graneman calls for 8% increase for 5 years. That's a sustained effort that we need to maintain.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan Chardiello.
Thank you. Yes, the school budget and the money, it's absolutely essential and critical, especially at a time that we're facing now. We're losing a lot of funding that we were previously receiving. So as an elected member of the school committee, this is something, I've been able to work with and see the budget and see areas where we've been able to allocate money into different areas. And I think that we need to move forward and have better people representing us. We can get relationships to bring in with the people that are, get people in office to bring back money to our school systems in our city of Haverhill. I was born and raised in Haverhill. I love this city. I love the Haverhill Public School System, and I'm proud to say that I raised my children, and I'm proud that they attend here. So funding it is a big issue, and it needs to be worked on more. There's a chunk of money that's spent on healthcare, and I don't take the school's healthcare, and I don't, as an elected official, I think that may be something that could be cut out. I mean, there's a lot of different ways, but.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs Everett?
Thank you. So in regards to the budget, I think, first of all, we need more transparency and accountability, and to know where our money that currently comes into the district is spent. I remember watching one school committee meeting where Dr. Maddox presented to the school committee a question and asked them, we got a grant of $1 million, 500,000 of it went into the budget, 500,000 of it, he was asking where that money was. Those are things that the community needs to know, where that money is. If we're getting money in for certain populations, how is that money being spent towards those populations? That's one part of it. The other part of it, as far as what we can do, my background is in human services, so I'm accustomed to working with grants, but there's also foundation funding, there's private funding, things for the arts and athletics and things of that nature. There is funding out there that we don't tackle. There are even just traditional grants that we don't tackle that is available to us. And I feel like if we tapped into the resources in the community and did it collaboratively, we would be able to get some of those larger grants that we don't currently get. But in general, I do feel like just knowing how the money is spent and looking at the data-driven budgets would be another way.
Thank you. So, okay, we'll have one more question. And Mr. Rosa, you will answer this one first. Can you list some ways that we can build more equity and make our facilities across the city more equitable?
Well, first of all, when you tackle projects like that, you can't just do it in piecemeal. You have to have a plan. There has to be a long-term strategic plan of improving the facilities. You've got to start with the facilities that need the most work, and then you start there. You work towards fixing things each and every year and improving the facilities for every school. It's not a question of how do you do it. We know how to do it. We've fixed schools before. There's been a lot of schools. There's been a lot of work done here at the high school. What we need, though, is a strategic plan where you focus on the areas that are most needed and you go from there.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
I've mentioned the May 2016 Department of Education report. We have one of the strongest school systems in the country. Why wouldn't we listen to the institution that is one of the strongest in the country and do what they said? One of the things they said is that we have inequitable science education at the middle school level. I mean, we're not talking about the labs, which is a concern. You have the brand new Hunking School that's different from the other schools. I'm talking about just time in a science classroom. That's different. That's easy to fix, and that's something we should fix right away. There's another point in that Department of Education report that talks about inequitable distribution of reading literacy coaches. So the 4 big elementary schools have them, the other ones don't. There's not a consistent application of the reading curriculum that they've adopted. And this is one way that we need to correct and bring equity to the reading literacy education.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan Shardiello.
Thank you. So going back to what I had stated earlier, how the early literacy begins at home. So providing resources for parents to help bring their children up to speed and get them involved is critical. We need to get, again, it all goes back to funding. And with the proper funding, we can have these resources available and we can create these programs. So fighting and having the right people to go and find the right funding to be allocated in the proper areas that are needed, and the areas that are lacking the funding is where we start there. And thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs-Everett.
Thank you. So I think first, I guess my push for public education, like as in community education, kind of keeps coming back. I think we need to understand what equity is and the fact that equity is not equality, meaning everything is fair, like we all get the same measure. So that's one thing I think as a community we need to really start looking at what equity actually is. And so when you look at projects like this, like the civic engagement efforts of the families of of Bradford that were able to increase the TAC dollars and kind of get a new school, which is beautiful. My son attends that school. I'm certainly not complaining that it exists. However, we have to, as a district, be looking at ways where we have neighborhoods that don't have that home ownership so that the tax base can increase, and figure out how do we provide assistance in that area, not just for the building facilities, but also for the type of programming that we're putting forth, because those measures, I mean, those results, they pan out as a district. It doesn't matter where your kid lives, what school your kid goes to. As a district, it's going to impact, it's going to reflect on us, especially when you get to the high school level. You've got kids trying really hard here, and they're still graduating from a level 3 school.
Thank you. Mr. Magliocchetti.
We need another new school. We need a school like the Hunking, and the perfect place for it is right behind the existing J.G. Whittier. We have the land for it. We could take down the old building. We could do exactly what we did in Bradford. That's the long-term plan, and we got to get there. In the meantime, we have to make better use of the buildings we have. We have to renovate Constantino to expand the space there. We should look at our older buildings, and what we should do is invest in pre-K to grade 2. Use the older buildings for those younger students, and that would give us more capacity in our existing buildings where we have the elementary and middle schools now, so that we can reduce class sizes and enhance programs in those facilities. We have to look at things like high-tech, libraries, and educational opportunities to programs like STEM. All these things are easily available at the new Hunking, yet we don't have it all over the city where some of our neediest students are. We have to make sure that these kinds of programs are spread equitably across the city. We are working on that right now. The school committee and Mr. Scully have been trying, but we can do more and we will do better.
Thank you. You'll have 1 minute, and we're doing them in reverse alphabetical order. Mr. Smith.
As a working public school teacher, I'm familiar with what teachers are dealing with every day, what administrators have to face every day. One thing I think gets forgotten is that education is a profession, and we are like lawyers, like doctors, we self-police, we educate ourselves to do best practices. Some examples of that: in March 2017, there were new language, arts, and math standards released. Last year, July, there were new technology standards released, the digital literacy and computer science standards. Those are the ones that I work with. As a computer science teacher, there's not even a certification for me as a teacher right now. That's evolving also. Accreditation standards are also evolving. There's an emphasis on 21st century learning expectations. I've been advocating for these for over almost 2 decades. So a vote for me is a vote for an educational professional who is committed to this work and will be committed to the Haverhill schools.
Thank you. Mr. Rosa.
You know, all the issues and the solutions that we've talked about tonight, they all cost money. Now, whether you think the $79 million budget is too little, too much, or just right, we could all agree on one thing. We need to always be looking for efficiencies. A perfect example is what we spent on out-of-district tuition for special education. We're going to spend $3.1 million this year for 77 children. It's gone up 70% in 3 years, $800,000 in the last year, and it continues to rise. If you were at this same event 2 years ago, you heard everyone talk about we have to do something about it. Since then, it's gone up more than $1 million. This is an opportunity as a district to not only do what's right for those students, because we should be providing them with the programs that they need in the district, but it's also an opportunity to save the taxpayers money at the same time. I don't have all the answers, but I will promise you this, that if I have the opportunity to serve, I will listen, I will learn, and I will always do what's best for the students, the teachers, and the taxpayers of Haverhill. Thank you for listening, and please consider me on November 7th.
Thank you. Mr. Magliocchetti.
Thank you. Look, I've been fighting hard for our students, our families, our teachers, and everyone in the Haverhill Public Schools. I am passionate about this issue. In my state rep run, I made education the foundation of my platform. I believe it is the most important thing we can do in a community. I'm working hard every day on issues that involve our children, that provide a better future for everyone in this room and everyone in the community. I've invested my own time, my own money, and I will continue to do so if I get reelected to this position. And I will never vote no to a project like the solar project here at Haverhill High School that cost us over $200,000 a year and that has negatively impacted the students personally and educationally in the Haverhill Public Schools. I respectfully ask for your vote so that I can continue to serve all the citizens of Haverhill for the next term. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Hobbs Everett.
So if you've been following me, you know that I'm pretty notoriously bad at selling myself, and so just bear with me. So the reason that I'm running for school committee, that's available on my website, but the thing that I want to say in my closing statement is a lot of the issues that have come up are things that I have experience in. And I feel like I'm a missing voice from the table, and it's a voice that has been missing from the table for lots and lots of years now. And I feel like my background in social emotional learning, trauma-informed practices, addictions, social work, you know, all of the things that come up, I have the reputation, I have the relationships, and I have the know-how to try to help cultivate relationships, because at the very core of it, that's what it's about. It's about building these relationships, and so we can come up with ideas and we can say, you know, these are things that we should do, but when it comes to how are we going to do those things, we need to have someone on the school committee who has the experience that I have, has the passion that I have, and has the roots that I have to be able to actively go about actually figuring this thing out with the community. So I respectfully ask for your vote on November 7th. I am in the second position on the school committee choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan Chardiella.
Thank you very much, and I would like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting another wonderful event. You guys always do a very good job at this. And in closing, I'd like to say, you know, as a former Haverhill Public School graduate, Haverhill High School graduate, and a mother of 3 boys that attend Haverhill Public Schools, and a former Haverhill Public School teacher, and a member of the Haverhill School Committee, I've seen it on all sides. I feel as though I have the experience, the education and the background, not only as a parent, but as a former teacher, and as well as a school committee member. And I'm running for school committee again, and I will continue to keep up with education because it's the #1 priority for me. And I will focus on one seat. I will only run for school committee because this is what I'm committed to. I have a background in education. I'm a parent. I've been in the PTOs. I'm involved in 3 different schools where my children go. And so it's a passion for me. And I make votes and I get heat for some of them, but I'm doing it because I'm looking out for the students and the best for everybody. And I respectfully ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'd like to close this segment by thanking all of the candidates for participating in our democratic process. We ask that you exit quietly, and I'll be inviting the candidates for City Council to come and take their seats. Thank you. I'm going to be starting the next portion of our candidates' night. This is the City Council race. And for those of you who are not here, the next segment will run until a little after 9 p.m. I'll begin by introducing the 14 candidates running for 2-year terms for 9 seats on the City Council. They're seated in alphabetical order, and the candidates are incumbent Melinda E. Barrett, incumbent Joseph J. Bevilacqua, incumbent Mary Ellen Daly O'Brien, Hartel Johnson, Timothy J. Jordan, incumbent Colin F. LePage, incumbent William Masick, Adele F. Martino, incumbent Michael S. McGonigal, Kate, I don't see, she's not here. Okay, my apologies. Incumbent John A. Mitchison, Kenneth E. Quimby Jr., Fred A. Simmons, and incumbent Thomas J. Sullivan. So Gregory R. Roberts and incumbent Andy Vargas will appear on the ballot, but they declined the league's invitation and will not be with us this evening. And Kate M.J. McGregor was also invited, and she is not here either. So for those of you who weren't here for the first segment, I'll go over the instructions. For the audience, if you could silence your cell phones and other devices. There's no campaign literature allowed in this room. We actually probably, I don't know if we're still collecting questions. I have many questions, so thank you for all of the submissions that I have. We ask that there be no clapping, cheering, or calling out, and that you hold your applause until the very end, after the closing statements. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So for the candidates, you're seated alphabetically, and you will each answer the first question in that order. And the first question was sent to you by email along with the format. It'll serve as your opening statement. The rest of the questions have come from a variety of sources: audience members, Facebook, Twitter, email, high school students, and through the Greater Haverhill League's website. They've been sorted by a panel of league volunteers for legibility and clarity. Now, this comes the interesting part. Since there are so many of you, I'd like to divide you into 3 groups according to the way you're seated. And I'll start by asking, so each group a different question. I'm going to go through a round of 3 questions, and then I'm going to come back, and you'll each get an opportunity to answer all 3 questions, just in different order, and I will repeat the questions. I promise I won't expect you to keep track. So I'm trying to get through as many questions as we can. You'll have 1 minute to answer every question tonight. So group 1 will be Ms. Barrett, Mr. Bevilacqua, Ms. Daly O'Brien. You know what? I'm actually going to my second script, because there are actually 13 of you here. So I made another. So I'm actually dividing you. Okay, group 1, Ms. Barrett, Mr. Bevilacqua, Ms. Daly O'Brien, and Ms. Johnson. Group 2, Mr. Jordan, Mr. LePage, Mr. Masick, and Ms. Martino. And then group 3, Mr. McGonigal, Mr. Mitchison, Mr. Quimby, Mr. Simmons, and Mr. Sullivan. So, first question that you all received by email is, Ms. Barrett, you'll go first. Please tell us why you are seeking the position and about your prior experience working with civic, community, and/or government organizations.
Thank you. I'm running for re-election because I want to continue to help my fellow citizens. I feel I've been successful in assisting countless folks in issues big and small through the last 4 years. I am a lifelong resident. I have owned and operated a small business in downtown Haverhill for the last 21 years. Prior to that, I worked on Merrimack Street in my family's clothing store. I have served on a number of boards over the decades. Currently, I serve on the the Haverhill Public Library, the Buttonwoods Museum, and the Griffin White Foundation. And I also serve on the Hope Task Force. And currently on the council, I serve on the Finance and Administration Committee, Public Safety. I chair the new subcommittee of Citizens Outreach, and it has been an honor to serve the city of Haverhill. And if re-elected, I will pledge to work hard for all the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. And I should have mentioned that our timekeepers are here in the front row. And our timekeeper will time you. So at 30 seconds, she'll hold up a 30-second card, and then at 15 seconds, a 15-second card, and then the stop card. Please wrap up your sentence when you see the stop card. So, Mr. Bevilacqua, pardon me.
Thank you for putting this on. And thank you to the voters for paying attention to what is a very critical issue. I'm asking for your vote so I can continue to be your strong voice, your strong leadership on the City Council. I'm the former City of Haverhill Economic Development Director. I'm the current president of the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce, a business organization providing jobs and opportunities. I'm a former school committee member that served on the new school building committees for Bradford Elementary, Golden Hill, Silver Hill, Pentucket Lake. I worked together to see Nettle School rehabbed. I worked hard for the rehabilitation and the restoration of accreditation for Haverhill High School. And I worked countless hours along with many of you for the new Hunking School. And was the first to discuss the plan to finance it. I'm the co-chair of the Merrimack Valley Advisory Board for the United Way, former Greater Haverhill Community Action Council Director. I'm also a 10-year member of the Board of Trustees of Northern Essex Community College, and other initiatives. If you want a strong voice, it's Joe Bevilacqua. He'll be your voice.
Thank you.
I'm done. Thank you.
Ms. Daly O'Brien.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the League. My name is Mary Ellen Daly O'Brien. I have served the Haverhill community as a nurse, advocating for people who require medical care most of my professional life, and as a city councilor for the past 16 years. I graduated from Haverhill High School and Vermont College of Norwich University in Montpelier, Vermont. I'm looking forward to celebrating my 40th wedding anniversary next year with my husband, Tom O'Brien, and we have 4 grown daughters, with the addition of a new son-in-law last year. Being a city council is a lot like my nursing world. It's all about priorities. My first is safety. We need to continue to press for additional police officers and more police walking our neighborhoods. We need to maintain budget priorities that continue to provide the equipment needed for firefighters and police to do their jobs. My next priority is economic growth, support and continue the revitalization of the empty buildings and our business parks. We need to strengthen our marketing plan for Haverhill, to expand our tax base and enhance job creation.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, and thank you to the League for hosting this event here at the Haverhill High School. My name is Hartel Johnson, and I'm seeking an opportunity to help support the city of Haverhill as your new city councilor. I've been engaged in the community for about 3 to 4 years, doing grassroots events, knocking on doors in my neighborhood, getting people out to basically have discussion on what some of the needs are. I'm from the Mount Washington area. I've been involved in Team Haverhill, Mount Washington Alliance. We won the Working City Challenge grant. I was a part of that as well. And also Urban Kindness helped to do some grassroots in the neighborhood, and also a member of the League, the Women's Voter League. I like to help others. I like helping people. So for me, getting involved and helping whenever there's need, I am that person. To be able to give a hand to somebody that's in need. I've been working in my company for over 10 years as an application support analyst and moved up to being an IT business support analyst.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, I'm running for city council because I love Haverhill, and I feel it's the best way I can serve my city at this time. I've been volunteering for the past 23 years since I graduated from Holy Cross in numerous capacities, including with Team Haverhill as co-chair of the River Ruckus Festival the past 5 years, co-chair of the Essex Street Gateway Mural Project, and the Art Walk at the Bradford Rail Trail. I've been a member of the Sacred Hearts Parish Finance Council for the past 22 years, the Haverhill Rotary Club for the past 16. I've served as a coach, Haverhill YMCA basketball, Riverside Bradford baseball, Haverhill Youth Soccer. I'm a board member of Creative Haverhill, the Greater Haverhill Chamber of Commerce for 8 years. I'm proud to be one of the founders of the Haverhill Education Coalition. I served in the Haverhill for Hunking effort, and I'm a business owner here in Haverhill for the past 21 years. And I think that all of my experience, both as a volunteer and professionally as a financial consultant, would be a big benefit to the city, serving as a member of the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LePage.
Thank you. I chose Haverhill as the place to raise my children over 20 years ago, and as a lot of parents do, I began volunteering in their after-school activities. One of them was the Riverside Bradford Baseball League. My boys played in the league for only 2 years, and afterwards they served as umpires. I stayed with the league for 17 years, was a president for 5 years. I believe there is no greater feeling than to be able to assist others and accomplish more together. I believe that a council member's primary responsibility is to represent their constituents and protect their individual and community interests. For those reasons, along with my dedication, perseverance, and experience, I believe that I would be a good choice for City Council. I'm currently serving my 4th term as a member of the City Council and 3rd term as the chairman of the Council's Administration and Finance Committee. I'm an active member of the city's Hunking School Building Committee, the Haverhill Overdose and Prevention Task Force, and the Sustainability Advisory Committee. I've been here this is my 4th term, and I hope that I've earned your trust and that I can stay here on the City Council, working for you folks, doing what I do, looking through the budget, looking for money that is better used for what we've had it before. Thank you for your attention, and I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Masick, and it sounds like, yes, you all need to really speak into that mic, or they turned it up. So, Mr. Masick.
Thank you. My name is William J. Masick. That's how you'll find me on the ballot. Most of you know me as Bill, and that's just fine. I hope to be City Councilor Bill Masick for you again. I have lived in Haverhill my whole life. I am a Haverhill patriot. I love the city of Haverhill, and I love all of the people in the city of Haverhill. I work hard as a city councilor. I've been doing it for a number of years. I'm actually the longest serving city councilor looking for re-election to the city council. I believe my experience, my knowledge, my background is what is most important going forward. In my private life, I've been a business owner, I'm an attorney, I've also worked in personnel management, I've worked in many fields. Moving forward, I believe that senior services, public safety, schools are all some of the things we need to work on, including the most important two, which is gang violence and the opiate crisis. We need to figure out how to knock that down, and I'll be there working to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martino.
My name is Adele Martino. I'm the people's candidate for Haverhill City Council. I originally started out as a criminal justice student and pre-law. And then 6 years working for 3 congressmen. I work with constituent issues, housing issues in Lawrence, Methuen, and Boston. And now I work with issues relating to homeless issues. I'm a homeless advocate, as well as a housing advocate. We need more low-income housing. We need more housing for the veterans. We need more housing for seniors. We need to take the vacant property and start to build a drop-in center for the youth. We need things for the people. We need people who are in prison, coming out of prison. They need jobs. They need people to help them with housing. This is what I stand for. These are the issues. And this is what I'm going to work hard for when I get in there as city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGonigal.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everyone who came out tonight. Thanks to the League of Women Voters, and thanks to the folks watching at home. I am currently in my 4th term as a city councilor. I hope to be reelected to a 5th. While I work as a city councilor, I also work with a couple of nonprofits that are very important to the city. One is Rebuilding Together of Greater Haverhill, and that is an organization that helps elderly and low-income and veterans stay in their home in a healthy, safe environment. I've recently started a new nonprofit called the Veterans Alliance of Greater Haverhill, and we will try to raise a lot of money so that we can help the veteran organizations in the city do the good work that they need to do. I've been lucky enough to be the chairman of the Public Safety Committee for the last 2 terms, and I would really consider it an honor to continue in the role as a city councilor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchison.
First, I want to say thank you to the League for sponsoring this event this evening. I've been on the City Council for 16 years. I've been president for 7. And the reason why I'm running is that the city is gaining momentum on several initiatives that I've either led or have been a key player on. I'm currently working with UMass Lowell at Harbor Place to launch their innovation hub to grow startups into Haverhill businesses of the future. I worked with Councilor Vargas and Brandeis University MBA students to develop a strategic planning and performance-based budgeting system for the city. I also led the fight for a 5-year plan in the police department. The city council demanded 5 new police officers, and we got them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quimby.
Yes, thank you very much. My name's Kenneth Quimby, Jr. I want to thank the League of Women Voters. I was on the council once before from 2007 to 2009, but I'm going to go way back. I've been going to meetings for over 35 years, so that's a little bit of experience for me. But public safety is one of my major issues. Also, more senior housing. That is another thing we need for the city of Haverhill. If I get elected, and we're going to push for it, I want it in the city. And some other issues, I was on the Haverhill TV TV Advisory Committee for Haverhill. I still am. And I'd just like to be involved, and I want to be part of a team for Haverhill, and which do what's best for Haverhill, Mass. And if elected, I'm going to work my tireless hours for people of Haverhill and do what's best for the citizens. And I'm not there for the money. I'm there for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons.
My name is Fred Simmons. I'm a lifelong resident of Haverhill. I give my opportunities to the people because I want to be transparent and I want to be the people's voice. I actually I'm an advocate for public safety, and actually during the public safety we want to have mental health people. We want to have more so we can work together with our schools and with other counselors. We need to concentrate on taking this to the next level of stopping opiate crisis, even starting in the 3rd grade with these counselors, to educate our children and work our way up. I've been on a few committees with the mayor's office. It's Downtown Waterfront Development Committee. We brought Harbor Place in, Energy Task Force, Sustainability Committee also, and also my union engagements. I belong to union. I come from a union background family. My family was from AFL-CIO. It was the leather workers. I started in the tannery in Haverhill. I also now currently in the SEIU 888, and we are in civic engagements and public awareness.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this evening. It's an honor to be before you. My name is Tom Sullivan. I am a lifelong resident of the city of Haverhill, and I have a passion for public service, and I have the knowledge and experience that has brought me to this point in my life. I graduated Sacred Heart School, Haverhill High School, and Suffolk University. And at Suffolk University, while there, I was able to go to work at the State House. I was a legislative aide to Frank Amelio back in the 1980s, and I was chief of staff to Senator Jim Jajuga back in the 2000s. I have 20 years of state service, and I know how government works. I also know how government sometimes does not work. And as such, I think I've taken the knowledge that I've gotten from my State House experience, and I've taken it to a new level as a city councilor. This will be my 4th term if I'm lucky enough to be reelected, and I do hope for your support. And I've just been such an active member of the community for so long, whether it's the VFW Santa Parade, the Winnie Kinney Foundation, the Forest Management Committee I serve on. I'm the subcommittee chairman of Natural Resources and Public Property, which fits me very well because I'm devoted to our parks and recreational facilities, as well as the many other issues that we face. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to question 2, and this first group of 4, you will answer question 2, then I'll move on to question 3, and another group will answer that, and then question 4, and a third group will answer that, and then we'll come back. So question 2, Mr. Bevilacqua, you'll actually answer this first. So incumbent counselors and candidates alike want to spend money to hire more police, to give to the school department, and for a variety of other items. What new revenue sources have you identified to fund all of these initiatives? And do you favor raising real estate taxes to the levy limit in order to have the resources to fund new initiatives?
Thank
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I have been a tireless advocate to seek more additional federal aid. That's one thing that we do not get enough of in the city of Haverhill to help fund major improvements. I do not support taxing to the max. And the reason why, when I've been in every neighborhood in the city, I've talked to young working families and I've talked to seniors alike. They've all said the same thing to me. Keep Haverhill affordable so I can stay to live here. I think it's important that you use your revenue, you use your dollars to pay for your kids' education, to pay your mortgage, to pay your car loans, and to enjoy life with your family. And if you're a senior, I want you to enjoy your retirement years in Haverhill. I don't believe in taxing to the max and getting every single penny out of you. That doesn't work. I think it's important that we generate more jobs and economic development, and I've advocated for new ideas with economic development and business growth and business development. That's how we're going to make things better for the city of Haverhill, as well as providing for affordable housing for young families and seniors alike. I think together we can make those things work for the citizens, and that's who we're here for.
Thank you. Ms. Daly O'Brien.
Thank you. I am not a rubber stamp to increasing taxes, and I never was. And anybody who may be familiar with my dad, who used to come to the city council on a regular basis as one of the founders of the People's Tax Commission, or I'm not sure what they called themselves at the time. My fellow councilor's dad was the other half, Councilor Mitchison's father. But I believe that we should look at the budget process every year. We should use our money that we have in surplus wisely. I think that there are a lot of programs going on right now, GoFundMe accounts that are helping different school systems, and I think we could identify some of those as a possible way to improve funding for the schools for certain projects. And, I think that a lot of people are very afraid because Mr. Dempsey is not going to be in Boston anymore. I'm not afraid. I think that we are creative and we do a great job working together, working with the mayor, working with the school committee to find these funds.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
May I have you repeat that question, please?
Sure. So incumbent counselors and candidates alike want to spend money to hire more police, to give to the school department, and for a variety of other initiatives. What new revenue sources have you identified to fund these initiatives? And do you favor raising real estate taxes to the levy limit in order to have the tax resources to fund these new initiatives?
Okay, I do not favor raising taxes. You always want to think about people that are homeowners and people that are not able to afford to pay for their bills, their household expenses, and raising taxes is not one of the things that I favor. However, we are able to look at other resources, how to obtain funds to support the city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Barrett.
Thank you. We have a number of options. First, we have to expand our tax base. Our tax base is so heavily reliant on residents. We need to have business, industry, and commercial development. We need to expand our efforts in that area. Right now, our economic development department is basically a 1.5-man show. So it's very hard for us to compete with other communities that are out there beating the bushes and grabbing industry and businesses that are looking for locations. We need to prioritize our inventory of sites so people that are looking for places to plant their plant will be able to say, oh, here in Haverhill, here's a spot we can go to. We need to look at sustainability, green and energy, and recycling, solar as other ways to save money. And then efficiencies in the budget. We are advocating a ClearGov. Thank you.
Thank you. I know a minute is tough. I appreciate you're all trying to stick to it. So actually, now we're going to move on to another question. And the first person to answer this will be Mr. LePage. And this is about public safety. Wait a minute. Did I just lose my place?
Yes.
No, I did not. No, I did not. I'm good. I just scrawled. I couldn't read my writing. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. So this is about public safety. By most measures, including an analysis by the FBI, Haverhill's police force is understaffed. What have you done or would you do to put more police on the street to proactively fight the recent increase in violent crime? And what departments might you take funding away from in order to fund this priority? So, Mr. LePage.
Thank you. I've already worked on that. This past budget, we held up the budget for 5 additional police officers. I showed, looking through the budget, that there was money that could be spent on police officers or any other things that we needed. So there's a matter of looking through these things and seeing where there is, I won't say excess revenue, but underreported, underestimated revenue, money that we know that's coming in, and not allocating to the proper resources. So it's a matter of allocation of resources and being able to look at those things. So through the budget process, again, this year, we did hold up the budget, the majority of the council, for an additional 5 police officers to combat what's happening as far as gangs and such, and some of the other issues in the city. I will continue to do that. I always think there's other ways to find things. There's efficiencies that can be found. I could talk about recycling is one thing where you've saved over $1 million in a period of time that you can use for better resources than what we were doing. We were literally throwing the money away.
Thank you. Mr. Masick.
Would you restate the question?
Sure.
Thank you.
So by most measures, including an analysis done by the FBI, Haverhill's police force is understaffed. So what have you done or would you do to put more police on the streets and to proactively fight the recent increase in violent crime? And what would you take away from in order to fund that?
Thank you. Yes, we need to add more officers to our police complement. That goes without question. I was one of the ones that supported the mayor's addition of 5 new officers. I would have liked to have seen more officers, but the mayor was not appropriating any additional officers. So we are going to increase the complement. It takes time because of the about 6 months from hiring until you get, boots on the street. I also would believe that we should look to 21st century advantages that we are using, but we should use them more, and those are cameras and other new technology devices that the police use. When you don't have actual people, you can actually look at cameras throughout the city and see what's going on and respond accordingly. As far as where I would take from any other department, I don't think we can take from any department. We are pretty much still cut to the bone as we have been. And I think that we need to look for grants, and we need to look at maybe some of our reserves and other resources that we can add for additional revenue. Thank you.
Ms. Martino.
My idea is to add beacons to the downtown area so that people are protected if they have a button to press if they're being attacked. Adding police on the street, beat cops down the downtown areas and areas that have issues with problems, as well in the playgrounds, adding the beacon in the playgrounds so that the children, if they're being attacked or somebody's bothering them, they have a button that they can press as well. Because the safety in the park for the children are also important, as well as on the streets. And yes, recycling is a good way, too, to help to bring in more funding. Also, graffiti. We have a lot of issues with graffiti, and I want to do a sweep of the houses, the buildings that have graffiti on them now to have these restored back to the beauty, and to find these people who keep adding graffiti on buildings when they're caught.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So this is question 4.
No.
Mr. Jordan, oh my goodness, Mr. Jordan, I checked you off. My apology.
Okay.
You have 1 minute. My apology. Thank you, audience.
Thank you. So I believe that Chief Denaro and his staff have done a great job of applying for and getting several grants that have helped take pressure off the taxpayers while still helping the police department fund various things. At the same time, the reality is we don't have enough police officers, and I applaud the 5 city councilors who voted against the budget and demanded that we get the 5 additional ones, but that does have to continue for the next 3 to 4 years to get us anywhere close to where we should be. I think we do need to work collaboratively with our elected officials, namely the state delegation, to find out what other state grants, federal grants are available. We have a bit of the opioid crisis here in Haverhill, and I believe that for a gateway city that we are, there's a lot available to us that we maybe aren't taking full advantage of at the time. And also, I do think we need to consider using some of the reserves that we have. We have estimates of $8 to $11 million in reserves, and no one wants to spend that down. We've heard the argument that our bond rating has gone up, but Wall Street being happy with our bond rating, it's not working if Main Street Haverhill has a crisis going on.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to the next question. My apologies again. I'm sorry. So this is question 4. And Mr. Mitchison, you will be answering this first. And it's a question about the commuter rail system. So what can the Haverhill City Council do to support improvements to the commuter rail system that services Haverhill to reduce the time it takes to get to Boston and back?
Thank you very much for that question. And first of all, as you all know, it takes about an hour and a half to get from Haverhill to Boston. And that obviously is not acceptable. We need to work with our state delegation to make sure that we get the modern trains and try to improve the time that it takes to get to Boston. Now, as part of that, what I'd like to see is better Wi-Fi on the commuter rail. And the reason is that people can do their work while they're on the train, let's say for that hour and a half, and still be productive. So there's a lot that we can do, but it's going to be a hard fight. We have to bring our state delegation into the picture, and several of the councilors have been working with them trying to deal with some of the other issues such as noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quimby.
Yes, thank you very much. I don't want to be redundant, Mr. Mitchell said, but they need to upgrade the service. We need to upgrade the trains, upgrade the tracks for a better system, but it's all going to start in Boston and work north this way. That's the only way we're going to be able to resolve this, ladies and gentlemen, because without that, we're not going to go anywhere. And with the legislator and maybe the governor, work as a team effort to bring it forward and get it done, not just Haverhill, throughout the area of Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons.
I just recently took the T in, and the experience is exactly what they've said. The thing is if we have to work with the legislation, they're going to make the ultimate decision of upgrading the T and getting new cars. If they had something like the Downeaster that is a straight shot, have stops now, it's a much quicker access. They don't have to stop at every exact stop, and the Downeaster could stop at major points, pick up the larger crowds, and move it on. That way, the next one won't be so slow for the next one coming up. So these are some of the ideas. Also, creating revenues. These parking lots that we can put up canopies for solar panels will also be a nice revenue for the city of Haverhill, so we can maintain some of the extra revenues that we need so desperately in the city. Maybe we can get more police officers and actually mental health advocates to actually work in our schools to stop some of the stuff that's going on. And you talked about, sorry.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. I commuted to Boston for 20 years, and my commute was anywhere between an hour to 3 hours, and that was by car. So the commuter rail, in my experience, takes 65 minutes to get there, not an hour and a half. And I honestly don't think it's that bad a deal that it takes you 65 minutes to take a train into Boston, where it can take you up to 3 hours to get back and forth by car. Having said that, there's always room for improvement. I think we're blessed to have a commuter rail that goes through our downtown. I think we're very fortunate that we have that because it's attracting new people to the city, new people to our city that are taking that train to go to work in Boston and wherever they go, day in and day out, but they come back to the community. So I don't understand why this is a major issue at this particular time, but I'm always up for room for improvement. If we can do something to better the rail system, let's do it. But honestly, I'm pretty satisfied with the way the rail works right now and the benefit to our downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. McGonigal.
Thank you very much. I'll be frank with this question. I don't think there's a lot the city council can do with this service. And to her credit, Councilor Barrett has worked with the state delegation to try to handle some of the issues about idling trains and trains left on and unattended. So it's something that we can keep on the delegation about, but it's not really something that this body has an authority to change. But anytime there's some issue that comes before us, we'll always reach out to the state delegation, do our due diligence, and try to do it. But there are a lot of things that aren't within our purview, and that schedule is basically one of them. So thank you.
Thank you. So we're rotating back to question 3 so that our first group of candidates can answer that. And that question was, by most measures, including an analysis done by the FBI, Haverhill's police force is understaffed. What have you done or would you do to put more police on the streets and to proactively fight the recent increase in violent crime? And what would you take away from in terms of the departmental budget if you thought you needed to? And this will first go to Ms. Daly O'Brien.
Thank you very much. Actually, I do not believe in draining one department to promote another. I think that that is a defeatist attitude. This year, by working together collaboratively with the mayor and my fellow councilors, we were able to push for additional police officers. And I think if we continue on that trend, that we will be successful. And one of the things I definitely am promoting is not just walking downtown. I want them walking in all our neighborhoods. I think that builds relationships, especially with our younger children. The other thing is, I think we're very lucky to have the police chief and his administrative team. They have gone after every grant and dollar they could, and only they can do that. It's not something the city council can do. I cannot write a grant for the police department, but they go after everything, and we are blessed to have the police chief we have and the way he has advocated for his people and our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. This is a good question. Living in the Mount Washington area, you always talk about a lot of crimes and different things that are happening. So I definitely agree having more police officers and having the police officer have benefits where they're able to sustain their job and have support and not leave to move elsewhere. So I wouldn't take away anything as far as removing any other benefits from the police. If anything, we want to support the chief, the police chief, to get more grant to offer to the city for the police, to have support for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barrett.
Thank you. I was one of the 5 counselors who stood together to insist that the complement on the police department be increased over the 2 officers that the mayor had proposed in the initial budget, and I was proud to stand for that. In the last year, prior year's budget, we had spent over $2 million in police overtime. I don't know that that's the best way to allocate the police funds. I think police officers have been burdened with 16-hour shifts, forced overtimes, and not just on an emergency basis, just as a regular thing every week. It's not a way to run a department. They are out there on the street, and we want them to be in their best frame of mind, in their best health. And forcing them to work those hours just is not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bevilacqua.
Thank you. I believe in a strong public safety effort to protect you, the senior citizen, the young working families, the business community, and everyone in our city of Haverhill. I want to bring up an example. We need to address the issues that cause problems. I brought up group homes in the city of Haverhill because we had hundreds of police calls to the group homes. Because of that effort, things are being done. And we brought in the state agencies that have responsibility to take action. The city can't do this alone. It has to have resources available through the state and the federal government. The other thing that we have to recognize is that this is a regional issue. No one believes that the criminals stop at our border and don't cross the border. This is a regional effort. We need to do more. And regarding the budget, I supported the budget that supports the city of Haverhill, but one thing that I support that people sometimes forget, the budget is a fluid document. We need to continually look at it as you look at your home budget. Together we can make a difference. But I think it's very, very important to recognize we cannot do this alone. The taxpayers, you don't have enough money in your pocket. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move on and ask our second group to answer question 4. And that was about, so question 4, and our first answer will come from Mr. Masick. What can the Haverhill City Council do to support improvements to the commuter rail system?
Regarding the commuter rail system, as my colleague, Councilor McGonigal, said, it really is not in our wheelhouse, but we can advocate. And one of the things I think we should, if we're talking to our, we need to go to our state delegation. And one of the things we could push for is to ask that there be additional trains, express trains, created between Haverhill, which it really is the end of that line, and get into Boston as quickly as possible with maybe just a couple of stops. I would also suggest that the trains add Wi-Fi, as Councilor Mitchison said, but also that they add maybe some additional accommodations so that the people on the train can have a more productive ride. With those things, I think it would be a better system. It needs to be dependable, and it needs to go as fast as possible. And if they hear from us, perhaps we get a result. And we should go to our state delegation with these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martino.
You know, I grew up in Methuen as well as Newburyport area. And I know that for years we had, there were in Methuen, there's an area where they could have taken and built a train station there, cutting it in half between Haverhill and Methuen and Lawrence, and trying to do something there to maybe have more of a transportation going to Boston, maybe directing the line to maybe a lot closer, and building something there between Methuen and Haverhill and Lawrence, somewhere in there to center off so that they could help to get less mileage going to Boston. I'm looking at that. I know for years I traveled to Boston, and I know that I lived in Methuen. I know that there's always been another part that they could build on in Methuen. I know this is, to do with Methuen, but yeah, I look to maybe doing something there, building something. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Yes, so I would agree with some of the comments that have quite honestly have already been made. I think as a city council, there's not a lot that we can do. We can certainly work with our state delegation to lobby for some of the things like express trains. The Wi-Fi is certainly a good idea. But I think really part of it goes back to the economic development piece here locally. Attracting more businesses to locate to Haverhill. If we do, it takes the pressure off and less of our residents need to take the train into Boston to get a job to support their family. Quality of life for our residents, really. I mean, most people would like to avoid the 2-hour commute in and out on a nice day, 2 hours in and out to Boston. So, see what we can do here locally so that there are more opportunities here. And it, again, would not only provide those jobs, but take pressure off the taxpayer, the homeowner.
Thank you. Mr. LePage.
Thank you. As has been said before, I think Vice President Barrett has done a fantastic job with her Citizens Outreach Committee. She's had the state delegation in, she's had the residents in, they've talked about this. Unfortunately, this has been a long-term problem just for the neighborhood in Bradford and the layover station for decades, and nothing's really changed. The issue always being of noise and the engines and all like that. It's been said, we can't do more than just to keep advocating on behalf of the residents, but also we can improve and encourage ridership on the T. I don't think there's enough utilization out there. If you go and you look at the parking lot there, there's a lot of empty spaces. There's not a lot of folks riding in. And part of the things that we need to do is we have 2 train stations. So it would be nice to have people going out from here, but also having people come here. Have them come here, have them come and see that there is a hub, that there's, they can live here, they can work here, they can play here, and Haverhill's a destination to be at. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're actually going back to question 2, and we'll be rotating the final group. So Mr. Quimby, you'll be answering first. And this is the one about, so incumbent councilors and candidates alike want to spend money to hire more police, to give to the school department, and for a variety of other initiatives. What new revenue sources have you identified? And do you favor raising real estate taxes to the levy limit in order to have enough resources to fund these?
No, I don't. Excuse me. I don't. Real estate levy, no. Whatsoever, no. Police is a major problem in the city of Haverhill. Great, we have 5 offices. I'd rather have seen 20, 25 offices. That's how I feel as a taxpayer of the city of Haverhill. And I like what some of the councilors said, though, I don't want to be redundant, but we have a major problem with the police department, not enough manpower. You go out in the middle of the night, 12:30 till 8:30 in the morning, we have 7 to 8 officers covering the city of Haverhill. And if there's ever a major problem downtown or on the outskirts of Ayers Village and Rox Village, we are in trouble. And my heart goes out to the officers. I don't want to see an officer hurt or shot someday in the city of Haverhill. We have a lot of work to do, and I don't want to give a direct answer. I'm cutting other city services for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons.
Yes. I believe that with the up-and-coming older buildings that are going to be turned into apartments and maybe little small businesses will actually help bring in revenues. There's going to be a lot of development coming in the next few years, and actually being on the Downtown Development Committee, in the next probably 20 years, it's going to reshape the whole city of Haverhill. And what this is going on, it's a long-term process. That's why we need revenues to actually, so we can have more engineers, so we can expedient processes and make things go faster. Again, with the revenues, we can get more police and fire department. We need equipment for them. It's outdated. There's a lot of stuff that we need to support our services, and especially in our city hall. Our city's not shrinking. Our city is getting larger with the population here. We really need to concentrate on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. As a rule, I don't support taxing to the levy, and I've tried not to, and I haven't voted for taxing to the levy because I believe that we cannot just rely on the real estate property tax to continue to meet the needs of local government. It's so clear, especially in the past decade or so, that we absolutely need more federal and state funds, particularly federal funds, come back to the cities and towns. It's a well-known fact that money spent on cities and towns is money well spent, because local government provides the most basic services for the most of our citizens, whether just Haverhill or the Commonwealth. It's so important to continue to have smart economic growth and development in this city. It's so important to increase the tax base by smart development, residential, commercial. We need to continue to bring in more revenue, but we also need to advocate more forcefully to our state and particularly our federal legislators that they must give us more money to meet the needs at the local level. It's imperative. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGonigal.
Thank you very much. As chairman of the Public Safety Committee, I was one of the 5 counselors who negotiated with the mayor. And to be fair, the mayor would love to put on 30 police officers to make everyone feel safe and, do what we need to do. But the reality is we can't afford it, not with the way our budget is today. But what we have to do is we have to be smarter with our resources. We have to be more efficient. And any time we can find a place to cut, we cut. Our job as city councilors, we don't get to add to the budget. We just get to cut it. And there haven't been that many opportunities in our budgets, as they've been so tight to the vest to begin with, that we haven't had that opportunity. But I will still advocate for police. I thank Chief Denaro and his crew, because they do a fabulous job with the amount of manpower, their expertise in predictive software that they've gone into. Very smart, very good use of their time and our money. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Mitchison.
Thank you very much. So we won't be able to really answer this question until we have a strategic plan. And here's what I mean by that. 3 years ago, 37% of the families of the kids in the Haverhill School District were financially disadvantaged. 3 years later, that number is 45%. So we have significant needs in public safety, public education, and as candidate Tim Jordan mentioned, economic development is very, very important. Right now we have 20,000 people that leave the area for higher paying jobs. They go to Route 128, they go into Boston, and they go to the North Shore and southern New Hampshire. We have the workers here. Let's do more economic development, and that'll provide the funding that we need for these very important items.
Thank you. So we're revisiting question 4, and that will go to group 1. And actually, and Ms. Johnson, it'll go to you first.
Thank
So
you.
it's, what can the city council do to support improvements to the commuter rail?
Okay, thank you for that question. I do take the commuter rail sometime into Boston as well as driving into Boston. It's about an hour, at least when I calculate it, it's an hour and 10 minutes on the train, and I can get to Boston in the car within 45 minutes driving. The commuter rail is one of the things that we, the people in Haverhill, need to get to Boston. So having an express train to help facilitate people in and out of Haverhill would be a good idea, especially if we have traffic in the morning where, you know, people are going to work every morning in traffic time. You need to have at least 2 to 3 trains moving at an express level. And when you talk about upgrading, if you get in the modernized train with Wi-Fi, it makes a comfortable ride. People want to take the train in and not so much drive. And I would rather take the train if I know I have a Wi-Fi or just more comfortable feeling in the transportation area. It's not something that the city council members do. However, it would be nice to have an upgrade railroad system. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Barrett.
Thank you. As many participants have said, the commuter rail really isn't in our purview as city councilors, although we can reach out to the state delegation, and they're very responsive, as they have been over noise and pollution issues in the Bradford Depot. Economic development, more people staying in town would help. But as far as the Wi-Fi on the trains, while I support it, I have been contacted by numerous residents along the train lines concerned about the health implications of putting cell towers on the train lines. They're concerned about their children and themselves being exposed to whatever could be emanating from these cell towers. So unless technology allows for self-contained cell towers within the trains, I think we might have a little resistance to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bevilacqua.
Thank you. I'm the only person here that has actually had an effect upon the train system. When I was planning director for the city of Haverhill, I worked with then Senator Ted Kennedy, and we brought the Downeaster to Haverhill from Portland, Maine. So the first question is no one who to talk to. No one here tonight mentioned the federal legislators or the governor. So the first step is know who do you talk to. That Downeaster is here because I worked with Ted Kennedy, and Ted Kennedy made it happen. So the first question is knowing how to make change. The other question is economic development. As the former economic development director of the city, I brought hundreds of new companies to the city of Haverhill, brought in millions and millions of dollars of grant money, and most recently worked to keep one of the largest job producers in the city working through workforce development opportunities. I brought what will become the biggest downtown development project to the city and other issues. So we need to make sure the kids that are in school today, your kids and grandkids, when they go to school, they come back because there's a job here in Haverhill, and they won't have to worry about the issue of commuting. And also that we have safe, affordable housing for young families and seniors alike.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Daly O'Brien.
Thank you very much. We have been working actually the past 10 years very closely with our state delegates about this. I've attended several meetings. Senator O'Connor Ives has been very instrumental. We are now completing the renovation of that bridge. That's really going to allow us to have the express trains. There are new cars that are already in the pipeline. My fellow councilor alluded to the Wi-Fi problem. This is something that the commuter rail has been trying to do, not just on our line, but on several lines, and getting a lot of pushback from the communities because of those concerns. One thing I can say is I have always found our state delegates to be listening, and they have helped us. And it doesn't happen in a day. It's not our money. However, we have 2 stops, which Not many people have, and we did get a new garage. So we have been moving in a positive direction. Bridge renovation, 2 stops, and a new garage.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to circle back to question 2, so the group 2 can answer. And incumbent counselors and candidates alike want to spend money to hire more police, to give to the schools, and for a variety of other items. What new revenue sources have you identified to help fund these initiatives? And do you favor raising real estate taxes to the levy limit in order to have the tax resources to fund new initiatives? And this will go to Mr. Masick first.
Thank you very much. Regarding this two-part question, I think it's important that, and I have actually placed for not tomorrow night, but the next week's agenda, a couple of items on regarding this exact matter. One of them is to formally request that the mayor appoint a committee to make a review of the zoning, especially along our I-495 exits, to create additional commercial and industrial space. We need that so we can bring in the business development. Also, I believe that last year in our classification, the council made a mistake. I had proposed a fair percentage across the board for commercial, industrial, and residential. That lost by a 4 to 5 vote, and then a vote that gave a decrease to industrial and a very small increase to commercial, but pounded residential tax. That passed 5 to 4. I didn't support it, and that's what I hope we can reverse in classification this year, because we cannot afford to have our residential tax rate skyrocketing. That's what Haverhill has, why Haverhill has been an attractive place to come, because we're an
Thank
affordable
you.
community. We need to keep it affordable.
Thank you. Ms. Martino.
Yes, we need to keep Haverhill affordable. We also need to put the homeless and the out-of-work laborers back to work with these projects that would be used with these abandoned houses and vacant property to build them. We need the workers. And also, in addition to helping the police with raises and being able to have the police back, we need to help the firemen too. The firemen too. I spent time over one of the holidays going to visit the firemen, as well as the police department, and they do need help too with help with getting the the firemen also getting raises and also having more available as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, would you mind repeating the question, please?
Certainly. So incumbent counselors and candidates alike want to spend money to hire more police, to give to the school department, and for a variety of other initiatives. What new revenue sources have you identified? And do you favor raising real estate taxes to the levy limit to have the resources to fund some of these new initiatives?
Sure, thank you. So we've already touched on a few of the things. I mean, applying for federal and state grants obviously is a good start. You know, working closely with our delegations, both, again, state delegates and the federal delegates. Losing Rep. Dempsey is obviously a huge loss, and the money that he's brought in over the last several years. So it remains to be seen how we do as far as the $2.4 million earmarks that he brought in. Part of it goes back to what Council President Mitchison's been talking about for years, which is developing a strategic plan so that we look at where is our money going, where is it going to be coming from over the next 5 to 10 years. It seems like long-term has been 2 years. One of the things that's coming up is the Hale debt. I mean, we've been paying $7 to $8 to $9 million per year, and from a presentation that Steve Gullo made at Team Haverhill back in 2005, I want to say, was that the 20 years we've been paying it was going to be coming up for the bulk of the debt, the outstanding debt in 2023. We're getting close to that. So we have to look at, again, how much of our reserves do we spend to close that gap, because we're going to be freeing up a lot of money come 2023.
Thank you. Mr. LePage.
Thank you. I want to say new revenue sources. I've found other ways that we had the money to spend on things that we needed. Again, recycling has been something that we threw money away for. It was something that was simple to do. It didn't cost us anything to do. It's good for the environment, and it's good for everyone's wallet, because the money that's been saved there has been used for other things. It hasn't had you increase your taxes. Identified through the budget, I've identified over $1 million, again, that could be used for other things, and they have been used for other things. So sometimes looking at things as just a fixed cost, and that's all we can do, and we're set, we can't do anything, is not the way to look at it. I look at things a little bit differently and analyze it. What we do need to do, though, is invest in market and economic development. And what Council Masick alluded to has been a long-time plan is zoning in the business parks that we have. We have 5 exits off of 495, but we only have 2 industrial parks. We should have more of a commercial base if we want to keep the taxes lower for the homeowners. And that's what we should be encouraging.
Thank you. So we're revisiting question 3 so that the last group can answer. And I'll repeat the question. By most measures, including an analysis done by the FBI, Haverhill's police force is understaffed. What have you done or would you do to put more cops on the street and to proactively fight the recent increase in violent crime? And if needed, what departments might you trim to fund what you'd like to do? And this will go to Mr. Simmons first.
I believe in not trimming any departments, as we're all strapped, as I'm in the school department. I do want to say, though, to look at economic development that will also bring in more revenues, like Mr. LePage says. We definitely need more public services, and the only way we're going to do this is attracting more businesses to come into Haverhill. And the only way we're going to do this is working collaboratively with our commerce, our Merrimack Valley commerce, and these are the things that are going to be more productive and getting more services back, because once we have the economic base, then we can bring back more revenue to the city and towns. And again, it goes back that we do need all services in all departments. And there's nothing more than we need right now is the educational part to help our opiate crisis by getting guidance counselors to teach our children in the schools from the 3rd grade up to understand these problems that we're having.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. The only way to address the long-term staffing needs of the Haverhill Police Department is to come up with a plan to have a multi-year staffing increase in the budgets. So when we had added additional police officers this year, I was very happy to support that, but that's not where it ends. My thought is, and my goal is, that we continue to address the needs of the police department in every budget for the next few years. So if we had a plan to, say, increase the department by 25 officers over the next 5 years, we would then make it a point to add at least 5 officers every year during those 5 years. It can't be done in 1 year, and it wasn't done in 1 year, and I applaud all of us who supported additional police officers in this year's budget, whether it was for 5 or less. Everybody's heart was in the right place, and everybody's heads were in the right place. We know we need more police officers, but you can't just do that in 1 fiscal year. You have to have a plan to spread it out over a few years, and you have to stick to the plan. And that's what I would do, and that's what I will do if I am lucky enough to be reelected. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGonigal.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Not a bit.
Thank you.
So by most measures, including an analysis done by the FBI, Haverhill's police force is understaffed. What have you done or would you do to put more police on the street and to proactively fight the recent increase in violent crime in Haverhill? And what department budgets would you take away from if you felt you needed to do that to fund this?
Thank you. First of all, I was one of the folks who were in negotiations with the mayor at budget time to add more police officers. I would not take from another department unless we absolutely had to. But we have to talk to the residents. We go back to the other question a little bit, and it's, would you be okay with your taxes going up a little bit if we could add 10 police officers? Those are the things that there's give and take in these budgets, and we have to look come classification time. Is it worth $11 in your yearly tax rate to have those police officers? And that's something that we wrestle with all the time. We want to keep the city affordable, but no one's going to be happy if you can't walk down Main Street, downtown, or the kids can't play in the city. So the epidemic isn't going away, the opioid epidemic. We're lucky to have the police department. The folks are so dedicated to a lot of work, but we got to support them. So Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchison.
Thank you very much. As president, I negotiated probably for at least a month with the mayor to get him to agree to allow the police to provide us with a 5-year plan. And so that was a step forward, and I give the mayor and especially my colleagues credit for doing that. So this is the first time that we've seen a 5-year plan and the basis for those additional police. However, moving forward, you cannot plan the police department in a vacuum. The 3 big areas that impact each other, public education, public safety, and economic development, they all have a strong impact on the other. We need to look at all 3 at the same time and in the form of a strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Quimby.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, the only way to fund the police department, like some of the councilors said, and I don't want to be redundant, is if you bring an industrial in, bring jobs into the area. You know, Ward Hill Industrial Park needs a fix-over pretty bad. Those buildings are old. If we can do that and bring jobs to the area, maybe we can use some of the funds for the police department, but not just that, the fire department too, because the fire department, I'm glad we have 2 fire trucks coming in. I want to thank the current councils for what they've done. But talking to the firefighters quite often, a local coffee shop called Battlegrounds, they said to me, we need a rescue truck. We need to fix it. So guess what, Mr. Mayor and councils, if I'm elected, let's get a bond. We need to fix, I'll get a brand new rescue truck. Back to the police department. We need more officers, and I think the only way is to bring industrial jobs to the area, use some of those funds, because I don't want to cut from any other departments, highway, any of that. We need on the school side. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think what I'm going to do now is ask you all the same question so that you can all answer the same question. And I'm going to call on you in different order. Does that sound good? Does that sound okay? Okay. This will give us a better way to gauge getting through the entire rotation. That's my concern. So actually, Ms. Barrett, this will go to you first. How would you assess the current city budget process? How transparent is our city government to citizens who are not elected officials? How do you propose to make our city budget more open and transparent? So you have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. As a matter of fact, Councilor Vargas brought forward ClearGov last, not this past budget, but the budget before, as a way for everyday citizens to look at the budget process. You could press on a button and see how much of your tax dollar goes to police or fire. The mayor was a little hesitant to let the public portion of that be used. Well, luckily, we were able to use it for a short time, but we let the contract fade. So I would like the mayor and the council to consider buying ClearGov again, or the open checkbook, which is also a way to look at the budget and analyze different departments and see where all your money is going. It helps us, and it would certainly help the taxpayer to see where all the pennies go. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bevilacqua.
Thank you. What I think is important is that the budget is understandable by the citizens of the city of Haverhill because you pay the bill. And one of the ideas I've had that unfortunately didn't get implemented was to actually meet with you in your neighborhood and review the budget. There should be a narrative to every section of the budget explaining in clear and understandable words what this budget does for that particular department, what it provides for, how it's sustained, how the funding is raised, what new things are coming by under the new budget. And we should make it so it's understandable to you because you're paying the bill. The other thing that we should know is we should have, and I'm a former planning director for the city of Haverhill, we did the most recent master plan for the city. There should be a 5-year plan associated with the budget, and there should be annualized meetings together, not just meeting once during the budget period, but we should be meeting quarterly with the mayor and the city council and the school department and the school committee to review the budget, because the budget is a fluid document, just like you at home. It's no different. You make changes in the course of the year, we should be doing the same, and we need to bring in all outside sources of revenue so you can afford to live in Haverhill.
Thank you.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Ms. Daly O'Brien.
Yes, thank you. You know, along with what my fellow councilor mentioned about ClearGov, we really thought that was a great plan. We were very sad to see that it fell out of favor. We're not the ones that paid for that bill, so I think that that was a problem. A lot of communities have benefited from that, and that's why we purchased it in the first place. We thought it was the right step in the right direction. So maybe we can, you know, pursue that again. Maybe the mayor will agree with us and we can get that back in the budget. You know, our budget meetings are open. Very, very few people from the public attend them. They're posted, they're online. I don't know how to attract more people to come. We totally want people involved. I think it's so important that we listen, and we want to know what's important. I don't think we get the best coverage from our media. There's a lot of more misinformation and disinformation that goes in social media, so I think that's very confusing to the public. So I just ask everyone to support the initiative to make civics part of our younger people's curriculum and to get involved yourselves, because we're open to you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. I think the public should be more informed of how the budget works and what expenditure is being done for the city. Having an open checkbook is a great idea. And also, if there's another alternative software that could be more transparent to the public, that they will be able to better understand how the budget works, what's being spent, what your tax dollars is going to or not going to, and how can we really look to have some of the budget be benefit to some of the concerns that we have, like the police force, or to education or public safety, those kind of things. You could really know if you have a good plan of how the budget works and how it really can be transparent to the citizen, that they will understand, and then maybe we can be able to have a better facilitating how the money is being spent. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we're rotating down to Ms. Martino.
What is the question again?
Sure. How would you assess the current city budget process? How transparent is our city government to citizens who are not elected officials? How do you propose to make our city budget more open and transparent?
Well, it's a good idea to have the open checkbook. It's a good idea for the people to understand how the budget is created, learn, understand the wording, so that it's not so complex that they don't understand what each part of the budget represents. And I agree with the civic, bringing the civics into the schools, and the young adults or young children learn about how their government is put together and take part in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Yes, so my assessment is the city budget process is not being done well right now. I've talked with several city councilors who currently sit, and the biggest complaint I hear is they get the budget too late. By the time that they're getting it, it's very late in the process to actually review it thoroughly and thoughtfully, provide input, have a give and take with the mayor on what is a tough budget. So that's a problem that exists currently. As far as how transparent is it to the non-elected officials, it is not transparent at all. The idea that we got ClearGov and you had to be a city councilor to actually be able to view it is ridiculous. That's not transparent at all. So I think we need to demand and work with the mayor to make sure that we buy the software, ClearGov, or if there's a better one, find a better one, but it's got to be available to our citizens. I mean, I've knocked on hundreds of doors, and that's one of the big things I keep hearing from people is if I knew where my money was being spent and I felt that it was being spent wisely, I wouldn't have such a problem with it. Right now, that's not the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. LePage.
Thank you. Tomorrow night, we have this on the agenda. Councilors Vargas, Barrett, and myself had put it on the agenda. We had it on previously. The budget process, as far as what was said It is the process that comes to the council, again, is at the very end. We don't meet with the department heads. We have them come when it's all been pretty much, I'll say, the budget's been baked. Is it open and transparent? No. It couldn't be a very open and transparent process because I identified $600,000 that no one was aware of in our budget. I identified $112,000 a couple years before that. I identified another $200,000 before that. So I've been able to look through this budget, but it's not very apparent because other people would have been able to see it. We had students from Brandeis come with Councilor Vargas and Councilor Mitchell, and they talked about performance-based budget. So this year I showed $1 million that could have been used. Then I showed that we could cut $250,000, and that was all part of the negotiation process for having 5 police officers for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Masick.
Thank you. On this item, I think it's important to note up front that we have a strong mayor form of government. As it was stated earlier, he's the only one that can appropriate funds, and the council can only cut funds. It's a very bad situation. It would require a charter change to change that. Our budget is not very transparent. I think that adding clear glove software would allow people to review and have some input. But also, I think we need to push from the council level to try and have some performance-based budgeting, to also have a start earlier. Maybe we start as early as January, and to ask the mayor if he would allow us to meet with the department heads early in the season to get their input. Maybe the council would create its own ideas as to what the budget should be for those different departments. And then when we get the mayor's budget, we would have more understanding, ammunition, and ability to try and negotiate for a better budget for all departments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. The only way to improve the budget process is to start the budget process sooner, share it with the city council sooner, and to make it more transparent, you have to take the format in which the budget is presented and give it more narrative, more explanation. It's also important to have performance goals and objectives. We did have that presentation by the Brandeis students who asked us to consider performance-based budgeting in the future. It's a great idea. It's an idea where you establish goals and objectives and you figure out how you will come up with the resources to be able to accomplish those goals and objectives. There's no doubt that the public at large doesn't know much about the budget process because, quite honestly, it's not a very sexy process. There's not a lot of good, fun. It's a grind to put a budget together, but it's something we all do in our own homes. It's something we do in the city, and it's something that we can do better. We can always do better. So I'm all for improving the budget process, and I've advocated for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell.
I think as far as transparency goes, the biggest disadvantage that we have in reviewing the budget is we don't have a 5 to 10 year long-range budget to be able to determine what all of our big ticket needs are moving forward. So the questions that were asked earlier, such as, do you want to be below the levy? Do you want, how much economic development do you need? Well, you've got to take that 5 or 10 year view that's looking at, it's getting tougher for police, it's getting tougher for teachers, we have capital improvements. All of these things need to be looked at before we can look at the single year budget. We have to know what we're up against over the long run.
Thank you. Mr. Quimby.
Yes, thank you very much. I've attended some of the budget meetings in the past, not all of them, and it's not a pretty picture, and I agree with the current councilors. We should have it earlier, and if I'm elected in November, I'm going to push the mayor to the limit. Let's get it up early, Mayor. Let's have it around April, even May, so we can study it, and we need participation from the audience and from the citizens of Haverhill. I want them to be involved. You're paying us to represent you. You need to come. Maybe you have some ideas. You can talk to the councilors that are here now or for the future. And I think it's a great idea to all work as a team, and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Simmons.
Thank you. Just to go back to the performance-based budgeting, this was one of the best things I've ever been to at a council meeting. I believe if we can instill this program, it will be more transparent to everybody that's actually can have an access to a website, or maybe we can even post it on the bulletin board at City Hall. We need to do the budgets earlier, like my fellow colleagues, hopefully, in the future. But anyways, performance budgeting will actually break down and talk transparency with each and every single department. We need to know their needs. We need to know what their future outgoals are going to be. And we can't do this and just keep projecting saying we need more police, we need more fire department. We need to have long-term goals, and the only way we're going to have long-term goals is actually with this performance budgeting. The mayor is the sole final word, but working with the mayor closely together with all of us in unity, like a union, this is how we work things, and this is how we get things done.
Thank you. So I think we have time for one. Oh, I'm so sorry. Who did? Oh, Mr. Wait, I'm sorry.
You and I are going to trade places.
There you go. Mr. McGonigal, I really.
Not a problem, not a problem.
Okay, there we go.
The budgeting process is, most of the departments are easy, kind of boring. They come in, there's not a lot of money in these departments. You look at what you spent the year before or a couple of years past and you're able to do it, but there are 4 or 5 departments that's where a lot of our money is going to. So we really have to understand what is new, what's coming. Police and fire are 2 of the biggest ones. The school department is pretty much set because the state sets what they get. And this mayor has always been, he's been fair, giving them extra money, not just the minimum. But we really need to be able to, and it's the mayor's call, to be able to work with the department leaders and sit down with them and understand. The way it is done now, it's not very transparent. The mayor sits with his department heads, he gives them a number, and they come in at that number. And we've tried, and I'll give the president his due. He's tried to set up meetings with other departments. We had a great one with the police department. I don't know if we'll ever see that again because, you know, you see the real picture. We find out what they really need, and we go after that. So the mayor has to help us out and be willing to be on that platform. Thank you.
Thank you, and my apologies.
No
Thank you,
problem,
everyone,
no
for
problem.
keeping me honest. I checked you off. That was the problem. You know, I was. So I thought we had time for one more question, but actually we are going to move on to closing statements. So you'll have 1 minute, and they'll be given in reverse alphabetical order. So we will start with Mr. Sullivan. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much. As your city councilor, I weigh every issue from all sides to make the best decisions possible to further advance the quality of life of every citizen. This isn't always easy. In fact, it seldom is. It requires qualities I use every day, namely sound, educated reasoning and judgment, as well as common sense. I'm proud to be part of the leadership team promoting responsible economic development downtown and across the city. I'm also proud to support our police and fire departments, who are second to none when it comes to fighting crimes, gangs, and the opioid crisis. I'm proud of a part of a team that is continually improving our public school facilities and, more importantly, the quality of public education. And I'm especially proud of my leadership efforts in improving our public parks and recreational facilities, including Winnikinny Park, Plugs Pond, and the newest renovation project soon to launch at Cashman Field. Most recently, I led the effort to improve and rename the boat launch and park area around Round Pond as the Stephen F. Wydola Landing and Trail. But we can do better, and I'm always looking for ways to do better, and I'm always open to new ideas. I respectfully ask for your vote for me, Tom Sullivan, number 1 on your ballot on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons.
Again, my name is Fred Simmons. I'm running for city council. I'm an advocate for the veterans. I belong to the Sons of the American Legion Post 4. I support all veterans. I support all, Oh, my God. Sorry. got confused there. Anyways, I'll just go over my stump speed. I support all veterans. I'm an advocate for actually the elderly. I've supported Sarah's Place for Alzheimer's. I've gone to the State House. These are some of the things that I'm going to do for the citizens of Haverhill. I'm going to be there as your voice. I'm going to be there listening to you. I am a candidate who will listen, and I will bring back forth to the City Council. So if I have your support, November 7th, my name is Fred Simmons. I'm number 7 on the ballot, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quimby.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. My name's Ken Quimby Jr., involved with the political process for over 30 years, been on the council and so forth. My thing is to go with an open mind every Tuesday or other meetings to find out bigger and better things for the city of Haverhill. This is my thing. This is what I want to do as a city council, because I love the people and I care about the people. And I'm not there, and I'm going to say it again, I'm not there for the money. The recent pay raise that went in, wrong. It's going to change if I get on. If not, I will cut my own salary. And for helping the less fortunate, fire and police, that's what I want to do as your city council. And maybe I'll have hours where we can all get together. If there's a problem, let's talk about it. And I'll bring it back to my fellow councilors. And hopefully we can work together. I'm number 5 on the ballot. Now, my name is Kenneth Quimby Jr., and I appreciate your vote. And a vote for Kenny is a vote for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchison.
Well, based on the conversation that we've had tonight, I'm sticking to my story. I'm currently working with UMass Lowell at Harbor Place to launch their innovation hub to grow startups into Haverhill's businesses of the future, right? Economic development. I'm also seeking a world-class broadband network to attract business, an alternative to Xfinity Comcast to lower cost for residents. It was actually Councilor Vargas who won a pitch contest with Brandeis University to get free consultation from 5 very intelligent MBA students. And we are going to do strategic planning and performance-based budgeting in Haverhill. And finally, I led the fight for the police department's 5-year plan. And my colleagues all contributed, and we ended up with 5 new police officers. It's been an honor to serve you, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 7th.
Thank you. Mr. McGonigal.
Thank you. Mike McGonigal, number 12 on your ballot, like Tom Brady, number 12, remember that. I am hoping to be reelected so that I can continue my work with the public safety departments, police and fire. A lot of work needs to be done. They're great departments. We do have a great city. We just have to be able to support it. We have to be able to tell all residents they can be safe walking the streets. All that is not easy. We're going to have our ups and downs. We can't see what tomorrow will bring. The opioid epidemic, some of the other problems that are facing, some of the recent shootings and things like that, we have to stay on top of, and we have to be willing to not just accept that this is our fate. We have to be able to, whether it's pretty or ugly, we have to go in there and we have to fight for what we believe in. And that's what I believe I do for you. I believe I did that during the budget process, and I will do it again if elected on November 7th. So thank you. Thank you to the league. Thank you to the media. Thanks to everyone in the audience and at home. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martino.
I'm Adele Martino. I'm the people's candidate for Haverhill City Council. I am for bringing how I work with constituent issues every day, and I see that there's no assistance available to help some of these people. I want to work with the state to bring these agencies to Haverhill. DTA, bring these departments here to help the people who need the help in Haverhill. Vote for me November 7th. I'm number 14, and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Masick.
Thank you. My name is Bill Masick. I'm a lifelong resident of Haverhill, and I love our city. I will do everything possible, as I always have, to make Haverhill great and even better next year. I hope to be reelected so that I may continue to serve as your voice. I will always vote to improve your quality of life, to improve the senior and veteran services, police and fire protection, business development, create jobs, and hold down fees and taxes. I will advocate for the best school system, and I will also work to end the opioid crisis and the gang violence that we have in our city. We must step on that soon, and I will do everything to reverse that. I have the experience and ability to do the job. I ask for your vote on November 7th. Please don't forget me. I'll never forget you. Remember William J. Masick, number 11 on the ballot, when you go to vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. LePage.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this informative candidate forum. I'd also like to thank the media that is here tonight, the Haverhill residents that posed questions to this panel, and the audience both here and at home. My name is Colin LePage. I'm running for re-election to your City Council. You, the voters and taxpayers of this great city, have supported me in past elections, and I respectfully ask for your vote once again on Tuesday, November 7th. You know about that recycling thing. I don't need to go over that, so I'm going to take that right out. Currently, I serve as chairman of the Administration and Finance Committee. In that role, I have also identified an additional $1 million while reviewing the city budget. That money has been used to lower your tax bills and increase funds for public safety and education resources. Yes, that is over $2 million of your hard-earned dollars for your priorities. I pledge to continue to work hard on your behalf, and I invite you to visit my website at www.vote4colin.com or like my page on Facebook for more information about my campaign. Once again, I respectfully ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 7th to re-elect me, Colin LePage, to your City Council. Please keep me working for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum and for those in attendance today, as well as those watching at home. Because of the limited time, I suggest people check out my website, timjordan4haverhill.com, and or my Facebook page. My priorities start with education. With the dropout rate double the state average, that's completely unacceptable. I'm proud to have been one of the founders of the Haverhill Education Coalition that's helped bring these issues to light. Public safety, again, this was a good start this year, adding 5 more police officers, but we need to do it for the next 3 to 4 years to get us anywhere close to where we should be based off the FBI statistics. Economic development. I mean, it's critical that we attract good, high-paying jobs and businesses to the city. That challenge is very difficult if we don't take care of the education and the public safety. If the perception from business owners is that we have a poorly educated workforce and we have a lot of crime, it doesn't make it very attractive for a business to locate here. And finally, the transparency. As we touched on earlier, it's critical that our citizens know where the money is being spent and is it being spent wisely, and all 4 of these things go together hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this, and for the audience and the viewers at home. From hearing from the panel here, it clearly states to me that we don't have a strategic plan within the city council, within the mayor. So going forward, I love the city, and the city needs help. We need funds overall. I'm not a politician. I'm just a public service servant looking to help the people of Haverhill. And when I'm hearing, we need public safety, we need more police, we need affordable homes, we need to have better transportation system, all these different things. Yes, we need all of these things. We need help, basically. We need funds. And in order to help the city, we have to have funds. And having a new state rep to advocate for Haverhill will be a great person that can look to get more funded for the city. And I'm just grateful to be able to have this opportunity to voice some of my thoughts. I want to be able to be a part of the Haverhill moving forward. There's great things happening. I want to make sure that there will be a better strategic city planning for the city of Haverhill, that there'll be a better public safety for Haverhill, affordable housing, better public education for the school system.
I am going to have to cut you off there.
I know, a minute just can go
I
so
know,
quickly.
so,
Thank
yeah,
you.
sure.
And just
Thank
overall
you.
improve the budget performance for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Daly O'Brien.
Thank you. Our role as councilors is to represent the whole community and listen to what you think is important. I will always support a good idea that makes sense. I look forward to tackling the renaissance of Merrimack Street, supporting changes that enhance our school system, changes that bring economic growth with jobs and an expanded tax base, changes to support our community efforts to address the opiate crisis and its tragic effects. I will continue to be an advocate for ongoing maintenance of city properties and city buildings. I want to collaborate with the mayor and my fellow elected officials on capital improvements like the Haverhill High softball field, police, DPW, and fire equipment, and the completion of the windows that need to be replaced at the police department. I'm passionate about Haverhill. My family has been here for 3 generations, and my husband and I had no doubts when we decided to raise our daughters here. I'm committed to Haverhill, dedicated to you, and I encourage you to all vote on Tuesday, November 7th, and ask respectfully for your vote for me, for City Council, number 3 on the ballot, Mary Ellen Daly O'Brien.
Thank you. Mr. Bevilacqua.
Thank you to the league and all of you. Let me tell you what someone said about me. He cares about the city. When you're talking to him, he listens and understands and goes above and beyond to help constituents. Let me tell you what I'm interested in. I want quality education for your kids and your grandchildren. I want a career for your kids and grandchildren, not just a job. I want safe neighborhoods for senior citizens and young working families alike. I want more senior housing, and yet I also want affordable housing for our young working families. I want to protect your tax dollars and not tax to the max. I want to keep Haverhill affordable for all of you, and I want to make sure that it stays that way. Let me tell you what a disabled American veteran said. Jerry Boucher, you may have read about him recently in the newspaper. He said, you may not agree with his manner or procedure, but he is sincere, honest, and likes to have things completed. Isn't that what we want for leadership today? Someone said to me, Joey, we know you don't need the job, but you can do the job. Please consider me, respectfully, Joe Bevilacqua, working for you for City Council. It would be a true honor to continue to represent you in the city of Haverhill. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Barrett.
Thank you, and I want to thank the league and everyone here for this opportunity to speak before you. And it has been an honor to serve on the City Council for the last 4 years. And I will continue, if elected, to address critical issues that face the city and all the people that live here. Public safety, it will be a continual priority for me. I was proud to be one of the 5 counselors who fought for the additional new police officers, and I am also proud to serve on the HOPE Task Force. Educational excellence in our schools is a priority. Every child deserves the opportunity to pursue a solid education in a good, safe school. And economic development is vital. I would like to attract businesses big and small to provide jobs and expand the tax base, which will keep our individual property taxes low. My priorities are important to a safe, vibrant, and affordable city where people can live, work, and pursue their dreams and ambitions. If elected, I will continue to work to improve the quality of life in Haverhill for everyone. Please look down the ballot, lucky number 13, Melinda Barrett. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. So that concludes our forum this evening. Thank you to all the candidates for participating, and thank you to the students at Haverhill High School, to our timekeepers, and to Haverhill Community Media for recording tonight's event. To the voters, please remember to vote on Tuesday, November 7th. The deadline to register has passed. It was October 18th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you need an absentee ballot, the application for the absentee ballot must be received by the city clerk's office by noon on November 6th. And the League of Greater Haverhill will also be sponsoring a debate for the Republican and Democratic candidates for the 3rd Essex State Representative State Election, special election. The debate will take place November 2nd at 7 p.m. at the HCTV Harbor Place studio. So thank you and good evening.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you very much to the high school staff and students.